whether it's a live stream or being on the radio, where the time comes and you got to click the button to go live. My window's up here so you can hear me a little better. And you just get that hit of butterfly where you go, oh, wow, we're really doing this. So anyway, good to see you. It looks like there's about, 60 people here already. So pretty exciting. I don't think there's ever been 60 people in the history of the city of Orem, Utah, who've ever been interested in State Street. So you're a first to join this crowd here. But so I'm going to start off a little bit differently today from the perspective of behind the wheel. I've got a thing mounted to my dashboard, so I won't be, other than talking to you, I won't be distracted with fiddling with the phone. I want to show you from the perspective of somebody driving down this street how, even though this street is your classic, as an urban planner would call it, a stroad, which is not an engineering term. Stroad is not something an engineer would use. That's some author came up with that. But it's a fair term to describe what this author would call a street versus a road. The idea is a road is a highway that's trying to help people go long distances, and a street is something you'd find in town, like to take a short trip, like around the corner to the grocery store. And so streets should benefit people making short trips, some of them walking and riding their bikes, and roads should benefit people on the highway. In engineering terms, they'd use functional hierarchy, right? So you'd have highways on this end and collector streets and neighborhood streets on this end. And what happens with a street like this is it's a highway, but the land use on it is a lot of people making short trips, and so it ends up being bad for both. And so let's start off at the beginning. I've got somebody saying they want to see traffic cones. I will find you a traffic cone sometime today. What's your username there? Traffic cone jam. So I'm going to flip the camera around. I won't be able to read your text for a minute. And Porcupine Punch writes, I believe the term stroad comes from the book Strong Towns. That's right. So I haven't yet read Strong Towns, but I've been exposed to enough planners over the years that I'm familiar with the concept. So let's go for a ride. It's 5 o'clock, peak rush hour on a Monday afternoon, and take a look at what this experience is driving. And let's see if I get the camera pointed the right way. Maybe pinch in just a little bit so you're not just staring at the dash. Sorry for the digital zoom. And if I'm ignoring your comment, it's because I'm driving, so I shouldn't be reading your comment. So this street was the old State Street. This was the main highway through Utah back before they built the interstate system. And this road here went through a bunch of orchards, apple orchards and things. And so it made sense that as the community grew, Orem never really had a downtown per se, a town center. It was just a bunch of apple orchards that slowly got developed into businesses and into houses, piece at a time. Classic suburban growth. And it's very linear. There's the lake to the west, the mountains you can kind of see to the east on the right side. And so it incentivized the growth to go north and south because you couldn't really go that far east and west. Businesses like that one there, the Miracle Bowl, that was there. You can go on YouTube, and the city of Orem has historic footage of driving down the street, I think in 1956, and I think it was still there. But people have said that this ties Sepulveda Boulevard in Los Angeles for the ugliest drag in America. I'll tip that just a little bit so you can see better. So you notice every business has its own driveway. You got about 7 lanes. You can make a left turn, other than the big intersections here, you can make a left turn pretty much anywhere, which gets a little scary. Traffic's actually kind of light tonight. A lot of times this starts backing up quite badly, but I think because this is an area with 2 universities, one to the west and one to the east of here, and they're out for the summer and on limited schedule, the traffic's not probably quite as bad as it is. On your right side of the screen where the mall, the sign is, there is a good old suburban mall, and we'll check that out on foot a little bit later, of how it dawned on them that the parking lots around the mall weren't making anybody any money. And so I'm at the red lights, I'm just peeking here. Zonder, I missed your username, but he says University Parkway, which is the light we're waiting at here, is nearly just as bad. University Parkway's, this light here goes east and west, and it has a bus rapid transit light on it. Well, in fact, the first bus rapid transit video I did, I featured this bus rapid transit line a little bit. Maybe we can check that out a little bit later on foot too. It makes that road a little, actually quite a bit different, because the bus rapid transit line, they've reduced the number of driveways on University Parkway. The bus rapid transit line serves as a median, so people can't make crazy left-hand turns. And so those two things alone have tamed that street quite a bit. It's still crazy, the number of people who use it. It really probably should have been a freeway. That'll never get built now because there's development around it. And that's something, an interesting thought about strong towns is the idea is that you're supposed to push a road to be a high-speed highway, long-distance trips, or push it to be more calm and narrow and better for short trips. But the street where both University Parkway, which we're crossing, and the street that we're driving down now, if it really was truly that binary that we had to choose one or the other, we'd have to turn this one into a highway. It moves way too many cars. It's one of two through routes, the other one being Interstate 15, that traverses the entire county of about 5,600,000 people. And so you get some pretty crazy volume on this street of trying to push a lot of traffic through. You can see people in the turn lane there trying to get into the mall. On-street parking, which is weird because that's a good thing for walking down the street to give you a buffer, but yet who wants to be parked on a street where sometimes people are zipping along at, illegally 50 miles an hour. Should we try to do a left-hand turn just to see how insane it is? So, busy street, rush hour, and I could just come up to any of the million bajillion driveways here. Oh, I got lucky, there's nobody here. So that actually worked pretty smooth. And so I think that's why there's that false sense of like, oh yeah, we can just keep the turn lane in even though the street's really busy. Oh, I got a karaoke place, huh? So somebody, I shouldn't be looking at the comments while I'm in a parking lot. Somebody says, is that Redwood Road in Salt Lake County? No, this is State Street in Orem, but you wouldn't be wrong to confuse the two together. They're both roads that are very wide, carry a lot of through traffic. But see, with the on-street parking and the high speed limit, this is really dicey, trying to figure out how to go out left. Let's see, I'm creating a lot of conflict. That's the term engineers use to describe. And then I'm using this as a turn lane, but that's not, sorry, I shouldn't be moving this thing around while I'm driving, because it wasn't really a turn lane that I was in. See, now this guy's going to try to either make a left or see, he's making a U-turn because he doesn't want to wait for the light. Which is fine, nobody's coming. But, he's creating conflict with the traffic coming this way, some of whom are going pretty fast. And I think planners often will look at a street like this and say, oh, engineers were terrible. Look at this monstrosity they built. And it's definitely modern engineers. No engineer is going to look at this and say, oh, this is good. It gets complicated because the state of Utah owns the street. So that's engineers, and they work with Orem City engineers, but it has to follow the highway needs of the state because it's a U.S. highway. This is a U.S. 89, I believe. It also needs to meet with the land use that the city of Orem has, which you'd say, oh, that's the planners of the city of Orem. But as we'll talk about later in the live stream, planners it's not Sim City. They've got to work with constituents. And when the planners tried to do a good thing to make this maybe a little more urban and nice and kind of give Orem the sort of downtown, kind of tame the street a little bit, elected officials got elected who kind of have undone everything that they were planning to do, because that's what I guess enough residents wanted. They didn't like the way that apparently they'd rather have the street this way as it is than try to make it something that maybe is slightly slower for driving, but would feel a lot safer for driving. I'm cruising along here about 40 miles an hour, and at any moment some doofus could make a U-turn in front of me, or somebody could pop out of a business driveway. And so I'm this is not a pleasant driving experience, even though, like I say, tonight the traffic's pretty light. It's moving all right. But in engineering best practices, most states have rules that say once you're up to 3 lanes in each direction, you really shouldn't be allowing either two-way left turn lane in the middle anymore, because that's just too many lanes you're trying to have to manage. 3 lane, trying to accept a gap coming out of the driveway against 3 lanes versus 2 is quite a bit of risk. The other thing you'll see, and you might have noticed at the previous intersection, this next intersection, it's fully a left-hand turn arrow, is the smaller intersections, they allow yield on green or flashing yellow arrow, which means you can turn left if the oncoming traffic is clear. It's very good for efficiency, but it's sketchy when it comes to safety. And I believe if this were California, that's not even allowed. You can't have a people yielding to a left turn against 3 lanes. You can do 2, but you can't do 3. And so this street, now see, this intersection's so big, I think it's a double left. They call that a protected green arrow, where it's a dedicated red or green. You go when the light tells you to go. But some of these other intersections, they flash and you can go whenever it's clear. And that makes the street a little bit uncomfortable as well, because, maybe not just it's the pressure to feel like, oh, I've got to make a left turn against 3 lanes. It's also, you're the guy going straight. Does somebody all of a sudden, pull left in front of you? So that can feel. So I keep an eye on this intersection here. So it's a flashing yellow arrow. So those drivers lined up there, queued to make a left, or the front driver's waiting for a gap in the traffic, and trying to they call that accepting a gap, where a driver emotionally feels like, okay, that's a safe enough space, I can go ahead and turn safely. You have a lot of cars stacked up behind you, eager to go because they don't want to miss the light. That has an emotional effect on us. We worry about what the other drivers think of us behind us. They may honk at you, and so then you're more likely to accept a gap, dart out into a gap that's smaller than you really should. Now see, this guy's coming in here to the turn lane, but I had to slow down because I didn't know if he was coming in my lane. This car's, don't know if he's gonna, the red Aveo, if he's gonna dart out. So we've gone, I think, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles now, and it's still all this neighborhood commercial along the street. And that's not bad. It's actually kind of neat to have a whole bunch of little businesses lined up like this. It's just not good when you're trying to mix it with cars going, 45 miles an hour. And so, you think about, well, why did those businesses show up? Like, why does a quote unquote stroad happen in the first place? Well, imagine it's 1948, the war's over, and slowly some of the orchards are turning into houses. The population's starting to grow. There's communities to the south of here, like Provo, and people who drive between Salt Lake City and Provo are going to use this highway. So they're zipping back and forth through the orchards. And you want to open a business. Now, from a planning standpoint, you'd want to go off the highway a little bit and build a little town center and locate your business on the little main street off the beaten path. But you don't do that because there is no town center. So you say, well, of course, I'm going to open my little car hop place or my gas station, or there's a place down there that sells equipment to fix sewing machines called the Mending Shed. They all opened up on the big highway because you have all these customers driving by, and you can put your sign up and people can see you. And when it's a few businesses, it's fine. Rural America, you go to any small town and along the main non-freeway highway, there's little businesses. But this area got more and more successful, and so just kind of one more and one more and one more, and pretty soon you have 3-4 miles of businesses, just all, you call this strip zoning, where it's just a commercial strip that just keeps going and going and going and going and creates this main street. But you didn't get rid of the fact that this was a highway in the first place. This road's primary purpose is long or medium-sized trips, people going from one city to the other. And so you have the kind of main street, let's all walk and look at the shops mixing together with people zipping along. And it's just astonishing how long this is. There are bigger examples of this. I mentioned earlier Sepulveda Boulevard in Los Angeles that's like this, only it's even denser and somehow even like busier, even though the lanes are narrower. People probably drive faster on Sepulveda when they can. You certainly don't get as many green lights on Sepulveda in LA, but yeah, this strip through Utah County, Utah, is just it's astonishing. Like we're almost into the next city now, and it's still that same type of zoning. You have a big bunch of cars stacked up there trying to go into the neighborhood. They have to yield. Every once in a while, as you've been watching on the sides, the driveways, like that pickup truck you just saw on your right there, the white one, has his left blinker on. He's trying to turn out to the left. Because people can make a left, they want to make a left. And because they convince themselves that that's going to be more efficient because they don't have to go down and make a U-turn. But we'll do a crazy left ourselves up here so we can turn around and start going back the other way. But this strip, it just kind of keeps going. It gets a little more thoughtful as you go north. One of the things that planners probably aren't aware of, but one of the best tools in the toolkit from where we're at now, moving forward, to prevent this sort of thing from happening, is to work with your state Department of Transportation to implement, they call them access management standards. Access management is realizing that if the state owns this highway, they can control where you connect a driveway to it. You don't have a right to connect a driveway to a state highway. And there are some state highways that have no driveways at all, freeways in particular. And on a street like this, you're going to still have driveways. I don't think there's ever a way you can get rid of all the driveways without killing all the businesses, right? But not every business needs multiple driveways, especially some of those old ones. I mean, look over here to the left, there's 2 driveways. Why do there need to be 2 driveways? Like, I guess one's for a house and one's for the business. And then on the does the other side of the business have a driveway? Okay, I think it's starting to get better here. I think in the 90s, Utah started implementing access management standards. And they're saying, hey, on a road that has a high speed limit, you really have to work with your neighboring property and space the driveways out a little bit. You can't just say, oh, well, I want to hook up a driveway anywhere I want, because I think the thought was, back when this was a country highway, I might open a fruit stand, right? And then you don't even have a driveway. Back when it was a rural highway, you just had a shoulder, and so you'd put a little dirt on the shoulder. And let's go ahead and get turned around because we're getting kind of to the north end. We're well into the next city north, which I believe is Linden or Pleasant Grove, Utah. If you're following along on the map, we're on US 89, State Street. But and I'm willing to bet we're not going to get a green arrow. We're going to get a flashing yellow. So again, the flashing yellow is more efficient. It's not more safe because I'm having to, yield against 3 lanes. But anyway, going back to what we're talking about, you have your fruit stand. It's 1951, and you don't have to ask anyone for permission. You just put a, fruit stand on the side of the highway. And all the businesses did that, and so your parking lot for your business has 3 aisles. You kind of connect to the highway in 3 places. And then later the state puts the sidewalk in and widens it, and they go, well, there's already 3 connections here. We'll put in 3 driveways. So you have 3 different driveway aprons, and now you have tons of extra driveways. And what we'll see in a few minutes when I get out of the car and we'll walk around is every single driveway is a headache when you're on foot, or if heaven forbid you're riding a bicycle. And so, because a driveway represents a place where people are going to cross the sidewalk and they're going to cross the bike lane. And with no median in the middle, they could be making a left into that driveway too. So you're looking like 6 different ways to, and then there's constantly driveway after driveway, So that business has a driveway there and a driveway here. That business, I guess, just has one driveway. But, you start to sit there and say, well, couldn't the state tell businesses, well, you just don't get as many driveways? And basically, it depends on the state, but most states, if they do have an access management policy, they'll say, well, when you go to redevelop the property, you tear it down and build something new, you have to renegotiate with the state on access management. And they'll have sometimes pretty strict standards. So, say you have to have 100 or 200 feet between driveways because they want to space them out, not have them so close together. And so up here, I think some of the newer stuff has more reasonable access management. But like this business here has 2, 3, 4, The other thing access management standards can do are get rid of driveways close to the corner. People can do really dumb things when you get close to the corner because people are backed up waiting for the light. They call that storage, where all the vehicles are, your parking lot waiting for everybody for the light to turn green. But you don't want somebody making a left turn through the storage area into the parking lot, or trying to make a left out of there right next to the intersection, or try to do something where they don't want to wait for the light, so they cut through the parking lot. So then the next challenge is, okay, well, what happens if the state takes away my access to my business and it's just gone? And there have been court cases on that, because obviously you don't have a right to connect to the highway, but the state can't just like throw you off a cliff either. So what the courts have ruled over the years is the state has to provide reasonable access to your property. So that's why Texas has those frontage roads on the side of freeways. So you have reasonable access while they can still protect access to the freeway. On this street, it might be it connects to the neighborhood side streets, or the state works with the 2 property owners to see if they can negotiate on sharing a driveway. And business owners are always scared. They say, oh, well, if you get rid of even one of my driveways, then I'll lose business. The research has tended to show having good access management where customers feel safer entering and exiting driveways to the business it's better for everybody. I think the number I heard at a conference is that actually sales went up 20%, after the construction was over, from pre-construction sales numbers, because a lot of times it's like you want to go into some business driveway and you go, well, I don't know, that I'll just go to the other location. That seems too stressful, So anyway, yeah, this is to getting back to the poor access management standard. We're seeing more and more driveway after driveway after driveway. It's difficult. I think a lot of planners are very orderly people, and you end up thinking, oh, I like these really uniform, like giant developments where everything's all thought out and planned ahead, planned unit developments and things. And those work well for certain types of development, but there is a place in a community to have all of these one-off independent businesses. There's a lot of affordable stuff smaller businesses can rent that I think there is a place for this type of development in a community. And they're already here, these, like I say, quote unquote stroads that planners talk about. They're not going anywhere. They're already here. And so they're fun to criticize, but that's usually where the discussion ends. It's like, these are bad, don't build these. Great, we're all on board. But what does the city of Orem do with this thing now that it's already here? And that's a more difficult decision. And the planners can come up with some neat land use ideas and transit ideas that can help. The engineers can come up with some access management ideas, and driveway consolidation and raised median in the middle of the street, maybe narrowing the lanes, and but what do you do if the community doesn't want it? So that's been part of the challenge here. Now this big development on the right, I guarantee will probably have more restrictions on where they're allowed to have driveways, because UDOT now has access management standards. They'll say, oh, it's a 45 mile an hour street. It has a certain number of cars a day. And so it's, okay, I'm going to cheat and look at the chat here. My homies let's see, what's that say? Incredible gas prices compared to the Bay Area, writes Max Sound. Yes, I even in the Central Valley, I've been getting used to paying about $5.25, or if I want to go to Chevron, heaven help me, $5.75. And yeah, around here it's weird to be visiting up here and seeing under $4 again. Let's see, technology disruption. Yes, autonomous vehicles will rule and should. These are going by pretty quick. We've got a pretty healthy chat going here. RIP any bike space here with the construction. Yeah, and that's a problem, right? I mean, it wasn't great before. You could see the old curb. See the old curb down there by the cones? So it wasn't like they had much of a bike lane to begin with, unless you wanted to ride in the drain. But I'm pretty sure you'll start to see more aggressive. Like this Walgreens is a redevelopment. So you can see they haven't striped it or anything, but they've left a lot of room there where you could put in a really nice buffered bike lane and even have room for the transit stop there. In fact, that may be why it's so wide. Wide can be your friend if you use it well. I'm not opposed to a nice wide street like this. I just don't like the way they've configured this, where like that shoulder there is ambiguous. So am I supposed to park there? Am I supposed to ride a bike there? Or is it just area to store snow when the snow plow comes through? They don't really tell me. And so it ends up being this just ambiguous space that's, but it's an opportunity. Later, if they did want to put in a nice buffered bike lane, put a little plantered blocks between the road and the car, or, whatever they wanted to do, there's some space to work with it there. So that's kind of neat. But, okay. Yeah, we're hitting a lot of greens here, so I'm not able to read the chat. Another new development, the car wash there, where they have a wider thing. That was because back when I lived here, 5-10 years ago, that car wash would get very busy and it would back onto the street. And so I think they were happy to have that extra space. Whether that was what they planned it for or not, I don't know. And then since I've moved away, they've built like 19,000 car washes in this area. Those ones where you pay a monthly pass and then it pulls your car through the tunnel and you have free vacuums afterward. Quick Quacks, Tag and Goes, Worcester Car Wash. It's just all these chain car washes, and they're everywhere. I think there's like 5 Quick Quacks in this area of 200,000 people in this particular area. There's like 5 Quick Quack car washes. Right here, this is one fun. If you ever go back at one of my first videos where I talked about the continuous flow intersection, this wasn't it, but I filmed with my really bad drone a normal intersection, and I came out here on a very hot Saturday or Sunday afternoon and put my drone up and filmed this corner here. So I'm going to pull onto a side street here, and we'll get out and walk. I think you got a pretty good glimpse of. Well, let's do one gnarly left turn here. I want to show you how nuts this can be. Make my way over. So we'll turn into the. I'm going to turn into a business. That guy's turning into a street. Now you got your pink Grand Marquis there. Okay, so we're going to turn into this hot tub store. Now, why a hot tub store needs 2 driveways, I don't know. Hey, we got lucky again. This is, when you're watching objectivity here, I'm not staging this. I really wanted to show you a bunch of cars coming at us where it'd be very difficult to make a left turn. But that's 2 in a row, where actually it was a kind of a breeze. Okay, we'll try to make a left turn out and see. Now the left turn in isn't quite so bad because I'm only yielding against pedestrians, bikes, and then the 3 lanes coming at me. This one, I'm yielding against everybody. I guess the other sidewalk is okay, but the cars to my right, the cars to my left, people entering the turn lane from both sides, and I'm trying to peek out to see if anybody's coming, and there's cars parked on the street. Actually, that really wasn't too bad. Oh, come on. I want to show you how crazy this is. To your right is a high density development it's now called Midtown 360. It used to be called Midtown Village. And it kind of was the beginning and middle and end of Orem's venture into doing higher density. And it was kind of a sad story. We'll walk by it in a minute and talk about it. But come on, I want to do a crazy left turn here. Well, how about right here? This will work. See, am I turning to go in the intersection? Am I turning to go in the driveway? Nobody knows, you know. And if this line had a significant queue, if there's a lot of people backed up trying to make a left at the flashing yellow, well, I'm maybe clogging the line because I'm actually turning in this driveway here, not at the signal, you know. And so definitely allowing somebody to make a left turn this close to a stoplight's not great. I think one of my videos, a UDOT employee mentioned that if they can't do a raised median the whole block because the city and residents don't want it, they'll at least try to put a little skinny one up through this section here so people aren't trying to make a left-hand turn. Okay, so I turn in front of this guy. I'll turn into the mini mall and go, oh, wrong mini mall. I guess we wanted to go somewhere else. Oh, and no way to get out through the other business, so I got to back up. Okay. So then, what's dumb is I legally can make a left out of this. Isn't that stupid? So I look, nobody's coming. I can come out here, turn out, and then if I'm really stupid, I can merge back in. I'm not going to because I don't want to be a jerk. I'll make a left. But that's legal. That's legal, you know. These are this, and I think this is the underlying thing about these, like I say, these stroads as they call them, is if this were the country, if this were 1950, whatever, there are rural roads like this all over the place where you just turn in and out, you yield, and it works fine. And in low volume situations, it works great. But I mean, this is very, very high volume traffic for a street, and it's just really dumb to have to basically. It's like playing, I wish I had a good sports analogy, but it's like going and the Masters tournament playing by mini golf rules, right? You know, you imagine the Masters tournament where they're golfing, they do it all with putters. You know, it makes sense on the mini golf course, but when you're playing in the big leagues, you got to play by different rules, and the street is still playing by the mini golf rules, and people are hesitant to want to give that up. And part of that, and you'll see here when I find a street to park on, is that big commercial corridor. You come less than a block off of it, and you're into a single-family neighborhood. And these single-family neighborhoods, this would be the first-generation construction on it, all kind of, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, as the orchards that were along this highway got turned into houses as the area grew. And there's a lot of red curbs. It's back here. It must be a school. And so a lot of the hesitation in my mind, and we'll talk about it more as we walk around, but is there's this kind of psychology that this was the affordable place where families could go buy a house. Orem has the very not generic tagline for their city. Their theme is Family City USA, whatever that means. I don't know. Oh, make sure a kid's not crossing. Family City USA, and so I think changing anything is forcing an exception. Is forcing them to accept that this isn't Family City anymore. It's very expensive. Houses are $600,000 or more. Families can't afford to live here anymore, and you know, people who live here are probably aging and maybe a little in denial that their kids have grown up, moved away. I don't know. I think there's a complicated sociological aspect to this that makes it where people don't want to go home Cali. Well, that's rude. Oh, shoot. Let the clutch out. That'll be one way to get to talk to him. Okay, well, while we're at the red light, I did see there was a very kind super chat from Sir Bikes a Lot Day, who says, and thank you very much for your super chat. He writes, I've seen uglier suburbs in Louisiana. Yeah, I mean, Utah's a beautiful state. It's got its, like anywhere, it's got its pluses and minuses, but it definitely is, you know, I think the sort of, and somebody mentions gentrification, but the housing shortage causing skyrocketing home prices, like what happened first in the Bay Area and then kind of spread to the whole West. You know, I heard Boise, Idaho is dealing with the same sort of affordability crisis that's hit, you know, previously Seattle and Denver and Salt Lake City. And rather than embracing things that could increase supply dramatically, like building a bunch of condos, they would rather just, I don't know, just try to cling to the past, hoping that the problem will just go away. And if it truly is a supply problem, clinging to the past isn't going to work. You know, there was a time after World War II where there weren't enough houses, and so they I don't want to park at a parking lot because I don't want to get towed away, so we'll go find a neighborhood street. There weren't enough houses, so they came and developers built a lot of affordable single-family houses on those orchards. And now there are basically almost no orchards left. And so then the question is, well, do we allow this community? And it's the same question, you know, hundreds of cities are going through at the same time. It's not just Durham, but do we allow our community to change and grow up so we can increase the number of housing units, including condos people could buy to get into the market? Or do we like it the way it is? We kind of, you know, freeze it in amber and the city becomes a museum piece, which has been the approach most California cities have done. And then you end up with an affordability crisis, and, you know. Okay, I'm gonna make a U-turn here and park on the street, and we'll get out, and then we'll see phase 2 of this live stream where I can actually be reading your comments because I'm not driving. What's it like to go for a walk along a street like this? So, okay, so I will keep trying to, you know, rule 1 of radio is you never have dead air. And so that's how I feel with this live stream, is I'm trying to figure out how to, no, it's not an illegal U-turn, at least not in Utah. You can actually, hold on, get my hand out of the way. Is this flip upside down or am I upside down? There we go. So I can do that kind of a U-turn in this state because it's just a double yellow. It's not, in America, most states, it's quadruple yellow. You can't go across. Or if they have signs up that say you can't do a U-turn. And it seems like I'm zoomed in. Let's see if I can zoom out so you're not seeing every little. All right. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to do. Okay, there we go. Okay. Good, you're in uniform. I'll recognize you. Oh yeah. So you want to walk along and say hello. I'll set my tripod up here. Thanks to comments a few people have made over the years, I finally upgraded to the actual class whatever vest that you're supposed to use when you're out messing around with the road, right? I used to wear basically like a class 0 vest with no safety to it because I didn't want the reflectors to reflect on camera. And then eventually I recorded something at night with this vest and I said, oh, it's fine, it doesn't reflect that badly. I also almost got ran over by a car while filming the video down in San Diego about the bike lanes that didn't last. Oh, hold on. let's see, hopefully you can hear me now. I almost got ran over by a car while filming some B-roll of some bike lane video down San Diego, and this really nice guy got out of his car and he said, "I almost ran you over. That's very dangerous." As I realize it gets to dusk, having the actual safety equipment is probably a good idea. So let me grab my notes and we'll start walking over there. Okay, thanks for your patience. Good thing you have the vest. Yeah, well, good thing the vests are cheap. Let's see, hopefully it wasn't while you were on the scooter. Same video, it was later in the, I can't remember if I went down twice for that video or if I locked my car here. Dangerous neighborhood, right? Actually, I have a friend who was involved with the, we'll just say he's involved with the justice system in the area, and he's mentioned it. It's good to lock your car. Hi. Then he says those dangerous Mormons. Well, you live here long enough, you realize there's every type of person. So, so that's what I say. It's like stereotypes don't really apply, because once you're around enough of one type of person, you get the whole bell curve of. Where's the hard hat? Well, I wore the hard hat because I honestly thought that maybe I'd get lucky and show up in the Caltrans. That was back the video where the LA bridge was on fire, and so Caltrans was doing media all day for local TV stations in LA. So I thought, well, sorry, I'm messing with my tripod here. So I thought, well, maybe if I wear a hard hat, if they're doing a media tour of the fire damage, maybe I'd get invited on, but it didn't happen. So the hard hat's nice if you're actually on a walk with, if I'm out on a story that involves a construction site. Because then I have, they call that PPE, personal protective equipment. So then I have the real vest. And the reason I bought this vest in the first place and the hat was, I think it was about a year ago, the city of Bakersfield, I got them to invite me to go up on the bridge that was under construction in the video a couple months ago. And get across the street here. This street has a lot of potential. It's a little neighborhood type street called Orem Boulevard, and it runs parallel to the big State Street over there that we were just driving down. And I think it's a little underused because this could be the alleyway, the access way to all the businesses on this side if they coordinate with each other. And so the idea is you see the business come around to this street on the back side, and that's how you enter the parking. They could even run, I like the idea of them running the mass transit down this street back when that was in their plan, but they never put that in their plan. I don't know, it just seemed like if I got off a train, it's great to get off by all the businesses, but it could be even more neat to get off in a more calm area. Yeah, Mike V writes a backage road, exactly. I think it would make a really neat backage road. So, let's see. Oh boy, another sterile and bland apartment complex. Yes, but think about how many people live in there. My only complaint with a project like that, because people live in it, right? So that's good, is I wish more of them were where you could buy it. I don't like the idea of, okay, this idea of suburban sprawl was, it gave people opportunities to basically have a savings account you can live in. I think that's very good for the economy and good for a community. People put down roots longer term, are more willing to go out to city council meetings and be involved. But if it's all investor owned, then the minute they jack up the rent, inevitably, I'm out of there and I move to another city, and nobody ever really puts down, or they didn't ever even, nothing wrong with people who want to move a lot. I've moved a lot. But if people want to put down roots in an area, it's nice to be able to kind of rent control yourself with a mortgage, right? And not have that payment go up much. But where was I going with that? So yeah, it's bland, but I just wish people could, buy it. All right, plus property management is a garbage 90% of the time. Yeah, I have a friend who he may, after work, he lives here in Orem, he may after work try to join up with us. I'm gonna stop for a second. I'm not out of shape, I'm in office shape, if you know what I mean. But he rents a place that was under a property manager, but because the property management companies are so busy, they got rather rude. I don't know what happened, but rude enough that the property owner cut him out, and he rents from the property owner directly. And in his case, his experience as a renter went up. So my sisters and I are owners of my parents' house, and the property taxes suck. And then thanks to a certain presidential candidate, well, I'm not going to get into politics, but do remember property taxes are local. And so it's getting in and looking at your county and your city and what they're choosing to do. Property taxes aren't set at a federal level. You sell the house, that becomes federal, right? Because that's capital gains tax. And then you get into Congress and national politics. But your stuff you pay every year, that's funding local things. A lot of it goes to schools in a lot of states. Is that a fruit stand across from you under the tent? No, I think that's a shaved ice thing, but you caught my eye because this is the kind of town that would still have a residual fruit stand left over. No, it's summer, despite how it looks today and the chilly, wet weather and the snow on the mountains. This town's about like 2 hours from summertime, and it's going to get really hot. And so having the shaved ice people, they're out and ready because at any moment it's going to be 89 degrees and warm. What Central California cities are you usually in? I'm in the South Valley. I tend to be down in Bakersfield, but I go up and back and forth the whole thing basically. I'm up in Chico a lot. I know people up there. So. Okay, that is a massive building, writes Mac Pines. So let's talk about Midtown Village. So Midtown Village, and I think I printed the article out on it, but back in like 2004, I was in college the first time, the city, a developer came and said, hey, there's this big highway, that's prime property. Why don't we do some higher density development along State Street? Do something different. This is a city that's all flat and single story. Let's do something different. And so they built, and we'll walk around the corner here. In fact, let's walk and we'll talk. So they built the sales office, which is this like weird looking thing with like a bell tower type roof, but without the bell. And I remember going to AutoZone, being a poor freshman and driving a 20-year-old car. I was at AutoZone a lot across the street. And I remember looking at this bell tower type thing going, what on earth is that? And it said Midtown Village coming soon. And they started building it. I think the parking garage, I think the city was even involved. Sorry, that's on me. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. See, distracted walking could get you killed just as much as distracted drive. So, Midtown Village coming soon. And I watched, they built a big underground parking garage. I think somehow the city was involved. That's like $7 million on that, trying to get the parking garage built through, I think, tax incremented financing, where, and I may be incorrect on this with the case with Orem, but in a tax incremented financing situation, the city looks and said, well, the business is only making so many dollars a year in property tax. It's going to start making tons of money in property tax. So why don't we let the developer borrow against that and pay it back in property tax to build some amenity that we want as a city, the underground parking lot, parking garage. And so as you can see, it finally got built. But I was getting close to graduation. It's like 2008, 2009, and the garage still, like almost nothing had gotten built. I think the one main building was built, but it was just exposed with insulation. It didn't have any. Now see, this is a good improvement here. When they built this thing, they pull you off the street a little bit and walk along the businesses. Some ground level engagement. All the years I lived in this county, I've never experienced this, because who wants to go walk down State Street? Our Argentinian restaurant there. So I'm going to come back on the line here so you can see, but so there's the AutoZone. Now I was across the street fixing my car, looking at that, the sales office, that front part with the tower looking thing. And I thought, oh man, what the heck is that thing? So this thing sat with the main building, which I think is the one behind it, bright yellow forever and ever, because it was, in fact, I should turn this around, see both of us, the building and me. There we go. Stevie F writes, is this Orem? Yes, this is Orem. I'm on Orem State Street at the moment. So anyway, yeah, that thing was there, but nothing else. And then by 2008, the building behind it, clad in yellow, ugliest looking thing you'd seen. And everybody, it was a commercial to everybody in the county to drive by on this busy street and say, see, this is what happens with high density housing. And, you know, it looked like a failure. Now, part of why it failed was what happened in 2008. Well, the real estate market tumbled, and banks were failing, and all of a sudden, you know, what bank is going to want to lend to finish that when the whole residential market is broken, right? But eventually it did get built, and then that got built. They built something a little bit more plain back there. That was what you guys were commenting earlier about the tacky, somebody had mentioned the tacky kind of boring looking apartments, but it completed the horseshoe of the whole development. And that began a process of a younger generation of planners, people, some of them younger than me, who actually did things right with their career and went to school and got a planning degree. And they decided they wanted to come back to Orem. So they came back and had some neat ideas where they said, hey, let's put together a State Street plan. So look at our map here. There's the 15 freeway, there's State Street, and the kind of diagonal angle that the county takes, there's really only two routes. So through Orem, that big strip zone that we just drove through in the car, why not do something different with it so that you're able to actually have something that looks nice? Marlon writes, how's the weather? Chilly. I did not expect it to be this cool, but Utah has very predictable weather in the winter and very predictable weather in the summer, cold and hot. But when it transitions between the two, which it does fairly rapidly, you get weird stuff. And so imagine for a minute, we'll look at the State Street here. That's what it looks like now, but they had a vision of like, well, this is what it could be, right? So you actually have sorry, I haven't trimmed my fingernails, so I'll use my knuckle. You actually have some trees and stuff between the road and where people walk, and you could run transit down the middle. You know, businesses are still there, but now you don't have the crazy left-hand turns, and you know, something I think could look really, really good. So they put this thing together, reinvent State Street. So they had a lot of neat ideas. Herbert Scheinbert writes, it looks like a highway though. Well, it should. It is a highway. So, you know, but you don't have that many through corridors. Mark laughing says tracks, which is the light rail system on US 89. Well, yeah. Where else do you put it? You know, and so they could run it, zigzag it through neighborhoods and things, but this is the through street. You know, yeah, I agree with you. I would like US 89 to basically just be a second freeway. But we have to work with what's here. The shops are already here. The other streets don't go through. They'll never go through like this one does because it's a diagonal street. So they had an idea. They said, okay, our State Street corridor thing, they adopted it. They said, well, the goal is let's improve the safety mobility, make it a people-friendly street. because we use responsible land use, and that idea of growth nodes, where at the big corners at each intersection will allow things to grow up a little bit, and say, if we're going to have high density happen in our community, why not put it here where there's people and cars, and just kind of have it do everything, but do it in a way that makes sense. Mac writes, sidewalk just ends over there. Well, it doesn't actually. It curves up here and walks along the businesses. It's actually, I thought it was a nice improvement. Kind of reminds me of like not that I compare Orem, Utah to Las Vegas, but the area sort of a block north of Bellagio by, I can't remember, that's Fashion Show Mall or whatever, but the sidewalk comes way in by the shops and makes it a lot nicer. Las Vegas Boulevard's an example of how you could kind of make it all work. They'd want to do it their own way. And then finally, because again, Orem is obsessed with their tagline, Family City USA, family-friendly design. The idea being, this isn't family-friendly. If you're in a minivan, you could get hit and killed, and if you're on foot, you could get killed, and if you're riding a bicycle, you will get killed. And so, so they put together this idea of saying, okay, along this strip, each of the big cross streets, they would allow up to, I think it was 150 feet. So they could really grow very, very tall. So this is about where we were at when I moved away, 2018 or whatever, where this was the vision of what State Street was going to look at into the future. The light rail, it might be a bus rapid transit system by the time they do it, but if you want a dog, you start by asking for a horse. That would take a significant investment from the state to do that. Orem couldn't pay for that themselves. And then changing so they still had 3 lanes, but you kind of narrow them a little bit. So you make room for the train, you put in some room for the trees, and that starts getting the pedestrians off. And if you're going to this much trouble, it also allows you to renegotiate access management, which we talked about earlier, of reducing the number of driveways and trying to make it where there's fewer places where people on foot or on their bike are crossing, right? So that's where they were at with the nodes. But then we had this is pretty cool. This is where they were showing how they'd phase it in. I wish I was actually at the same block. I'm not, but it's ugly enough. It really doesn't matter. So you start off with what you've got, and the first thing you do is you put in that raised median, and maybe the trees kind of push the sidewalk back. Really define that is on, you have a multi-use paths. I guess you'd bike over here, but you really make it clear that those are specific on-street parking spots. And so then that already is going to make a huge improvement without really having to change much. To implement that, well, you'd put in the raised median, you define the parking spots, maybe narrow the lanes a tiny bit, redo the sidewalk. That'd probably be the most expensive part, and you'd be good. Then the next phase would be, I don't know what they're doing here. It looks almost the same. Guess have shoppers arrive and push strollers. But then finally, you roll out the transit, and then you've fully converted the street into something better. And so that, I really like their plan. All the, we got a super chat. Pete Martin, thank you very much. He writes, the road may be ugly, but the view is spectacular. Yes. And when you grow up around, I've lived out west my entire life, California, Oregon, Utah, various times. I'm used to mountain views, or in the case of Oregon, mountain view, singular. And it's jaw-dropping to me to drive to the heartland of the country. You get past Denver and you go, well, where'd the scenery go? And so I lived as a poor graduate student in a basement of a townhouse south of here, and out my kitchen window, I was a block from the mountain. A view that in other cities in the world, people would pay $1 million for that view. Just towering mountains out my kitchen window. And I was just renting, garbage grad school housing. So when there's a big mountain range and everybody lives along it, it's beautiful. Downside, everybody lives along these mountains. They're going to be in real trouble when the big fault line slips, because everybody lives along it. Cameron Reap writes, hello, Rob. How are you today? Good. the rain has stopped, and it's really nice. Marius writes, you get used to your scenery. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia, and it's kind of nothing special. Oh gosh, Vancouver makes Utah look like the Midwest. It's gorgeous up there. I think the only place that's prettier is maybe like Anchorage, Alaska. Okay, so anyway, the density nodes. So they were all set. What's funny is this development here was not on the node. It was mid-block because that street down there is we're between 400 and Center. So I think we're somewhere right about here, midway. So it actually didn't fit with their... Mark writes, I'd stay, but if I didn't have to work tomorrow, thanks for the stream. Well, thanks for stopping by, Mark. Matt writes, well, I'm an hour late for the stream. Well, that's okay, Matt. My streams go on and on and on and on. So here's another thing that they had in their plan that they adopted into code. I like this a lot, is if it's eventually going to turn it into a street where there's people walking along it and trees and everything, put the businesses right up against State Street and the cross street, right? Instead of what we've been doing since World War II, where you have the parking lot in front. You still have people can arrive by car. That's perfectly good. They just park behind the business, but then have the front doors face the street. And that makes it really nice. Marius 007 writes, are they actually going to carry out this plan? Well, it's funny you asked that because they were, but then something happened. And this is kind of the big takeaway when we have the nuanced discussion on stroads or urban planning or whatever, is you can only do, let's get the sun out of the shot there, that you can only do what your constituents allow you to do. And since this thing got built, nobody loved it, and a number of rental-only apartments got built up and down the corridor here. Typically those construction projects you see now where, I don't know if the fire code changed in the last 10 or 20 years, but you know those developments where the ground floor is metal or concrete, and that's usually commercial. Maybe they put the parking behind it or underneath. And then they do about 4 or 5 stories of wood frame, stick frame development on top of the concrete. So you end up with this 6-story building roughly. And it makes high density housing cheaper to build because you can build it out of wood. And with modern fire suppression sprinkler systems and alarms, they can actually make a 5-story building safe. And in a place like here, it's great because stick frame wiggles in an earthquake. And you want, the more the building can kind of wiggle, the less it's going to snap and break and collapse on people. So it's a win-win-win-win-win. Except I think most of it is rental. And so taking an issue of people being concerned about there being too many rentals being built along this corridor, politicians and constituents conflated it with high density. And here's what happened. So they recently went into their code and started chopping things out. And so it used to say that the maximum height for structures located on a C3 zone, which are set back no less than 150 feet from a residential zone. So first of all, even though there's residential right there, now you have to be 150 feet from houses before you can do high density. If it's within 150 feet, it used to be you could go 60 feet high. That'd be about 5 stories, 5 or 6 stories. They chopped that down to 48. So now you're basically at 4 stories. The maximum height for structures in a C2 zone, which have to be at least 100 feet, are now down to 35 feet. So you're almost back to suburban territory because there are houses and neighborhoods that are 35 feet, right? So then they said all build. So remember how we were looking how you could have the building flip it, so you have the building up against the sidewalk, and instead of having the parking lot, like the auto zone here, we'll tip it down so you can see. But it, there we go. It has the parking lot in front and then the business in the back. You could flip that. You could have the auto zone right up against the back of the sidewalk. That was what was in the State Street plan, that you could have the business right up against the sidewalk and start to be more like a downtown here. Well, they changed that. This is in 2021. I think they redid all this. So now it says all buildings and parking lots shall be at least 15 feet from any required sidewalk adjacent to State Street. So it's not even citywide, specifically to this street now. Any sidewalks you have to put in, there has to be 15 feet of grass before you can even get to a building or a parking lot. And then they just chopped out more stuff about, so it used to say that the height limitation shall not apply to things like belfries, cupolas, or domes that are not used for human occupancy. Well, they chopped that out now. That counts. So like this building over here that has the little like tower thing that nobody occupies, they used to not count on the height restriction. Well, now it counts. so what's happened is there was enough irritation among enough voters at election time. They elected city council members and a mayor who pulled back from the State Street plan. So you can have a really good plan, but if people don't want it goes away. And so that's how we end up with America continuing to build the way it builds. It's not because the planners are dumb or the engineers are blind, or it's ultimately the constituents. People turn out to vote for the status quo. They like what they have. And I've been thinking about that over the years. I think part of it is, let's say, if enough high density development had gotten built here, especially if it had been condos you could buy, you decide you want to move somewhere with pretty mountains. So you move to Orem, Utah, and you buy a condo, right? Once you have that condo, you get a voice in the community. But right now you don't. You don't even know that you're being deprived of a voice in the community because you haven't even ever considered the fact that you might want to move to Orem, Utah. Now, the only people who get a voice in Orem politics, and this is true of every city, I'm not just picking on Orem, is the people who already live in the community, most of whom are in the single family houses behind AutoZone there. And so they only have things to lose, right? They're like, oh, well, the high density, somebody could tear down AutoZone, build something that's 150 feet tall, and then people are looking out their 7th-story balconies down at my backyard, and then I don't have privacy in my backyard, so I'm going to elect elected representatives who are going to prevent that from happening. And while we're at it, we'll say, well, it's family friendly. And that's kind of the mindset, right, is that, oh, well, back in the 80s and 90s, these single-family houses were very family-friendly. These new rentals, I don't know. Could be transients, people who move all the time, people who don't want to have kids, students, retirees. That's not family-friendly. We want to instead have just their in-the-box thing, which would be fine if Orem had a lot more land. If it was Aurora, Colorado, and you could just go out and out and out into the plains, or it's a suburb in Texas, and you could just keep going out on the flat plains. But there's a mountain that way, there's a lake that way, there's nowhere to go. Okay, let's look and see. Zoning laws are so toxic, writes Cooking Phil. They served a purpose, but zoning laws never get easier. They get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. And I think we've gotten to the point where at a time when we need a little more creativity for property owners to try new things, they're tighter than ever, Chadring writes, we need housing. I don't care what homeowner thinks. Fair. That's what's funny about politics, whether it's California or Utah, which on the ideological aisle are yins and yangs of each other. They both are fighting the same battle. I could do this video in California, it'd be the same video, right? On the state level, the governor and many people in the legislature are all for saying we have an affordability crisis in our state, and the number one issue that's dogging our state's economy is that we go to hire people to work in the state, and they can't take the job and turn down the job because they can't afford the housing, because the housing has gotten far beyond what the wages can pay, because there's just not enough of it, not enough things for people to buy. And so on a state level, Utah, just like Colorado, California or anywhere else, is wanting to make some big reforms to make it easier to build. But then you get to local politics, and you probably, if I polled random people in Orem, which I would if they were on the street walking, but they're all going by too fast, and I could ask them and say, do you think Utah needs more housing, especially stuff that's affordable for, entry-level buyers, stuff around 1,000 square feet? They'd all say yes. And I say, cool, can I build it right here? They'll all say, well, not there, because Orem is special. Okay, but Provo's special, and Salt Lake City is special, and Denver's special, and every suburb is special. And if everywhere is special, nowhere is. It's Incredibles reference. But that's the problem, right? And so it's okay to say, well, we need more housing. I don't care what the guy in the house thinks. Well, you should, because he gets to elect the city council reps who make these decisions. I don't get to, you don't get to. So what do we do to convince them it's okay to build more stuff nearby? I don't know. That's the question. That's the reason I rent a very small space. I'm going to be 40 next year, you know. I never thought, if you'd gone back to me in high school and said, you're going to get all this education and then you're going to be nearly 40 and still have never, you know, you have no equity, I wouldn't have believed it, but here we are. So I agree with you, we got to build more stuff. But how do I get that guy in that house behind AutoZone, where, I don't know where I'm pointing. There we go. That guy there. How do I get him to elect representatives who are okay with more condos getting built? Now, in fairness, they are conflating the two concepts together, right? High density versus rentals. But, and so if you get looking here, I'm going to flip this around here so you can see. So this is on their website now, that the mayor and city council want to let you know of proposed changes to the State Street plan. And they have a link to the old plan, and they say, well, our new goals, before it was about sustainable land use and whatnot, now it's saying, okay, help businesses thrive, cool. Attract new business, excellent. Beautification, no problem. Protect neighborhoods. And then you come down here to the bottom, in particular, they talk about eliminate all new high-density apartment projects on State Street. Well, to their point, maybe we shouldn't be approving so many apartments. But then it gets interesting, because I don't know the way zoning code works, if it's just a density thing. Like if I'm building single-family houses, and I'm going to rent them out, I'm an investor, I'm not, but if I were an investor and I wanted to build 3 houses and rent them all out, if I meet the code of the structure meeting everything that zone requires, I don't know if the city can get in and say, oh, you can't build it, it's a rental, versus saying, oh, those are going to be owner occupied, you can rent them out. I don't know. I'm not sure how state laws are written, whether cities have that power. I can understand why they'd grow concerned if all the new development was rentals, and they're like, well, we don't want so many rentals, we want homeowners. And if there was a mechanism, excuse me, where the city could come in and say, okay, you can do high density, but it's going to be condos people buy, maybe that would be less contentious. But it doesn't matter. Whoever's been elected is against the high density, leaning into the fact that it's all apartments. Well, that helps. And so that's why the code, they just went through and they just struck it, and they struck it. So the mayor had a message. Okay, so here's the news article that came out 2022. So the city council had a meeting, and in it they removed all references to bus rapid transit and light rail projects in the city, and it passed unanimously. So I'm saying you clearly have the constituents here clearly have an issue with the vision that was the planners had laid out for them. Just too bad, because it was a good plan. But power doesn't rest in the planners. This is America. It rests in the constituents through the city council. They also removed language pertaining to improving the front runner train. Right now, the commuter rail train, most of it is single track, and so the state is spending a lot of money to gradually double track it. So it doesn't matter whether they support it or not. That's the state's project. But the fact that they removed that is also a little bit telling. But then they said, oh, well, through Orem, we don't need to support it because it's already double tracked through Orem. Whatever. But then they said, oh, we're not anti-transit. We just want adequate bus system. And what's funny is they act like they're worried about light rail or bus rapid transit would harm businesses in the commercial area. Oh, please. Like, I know I'm supposed to be objective here, but like this city, University Parkway, when we first started this stream and I was waiting at that very long light, East and West already has a bus rapid transit line. So it's not even like it's a new scary thing. They already know what these things look like. I don't think it's hurt business at all. Business seems to be doing really well on that street. So I don't understand why they'd be scared of it being here unless they're terrified of losing their left-hand turn. Okay, let's catch up with some chats here. Let's see. Now the towers are cool. South Florida, but don't have any citizens. Steve F. writes, I'm in Layton right now visiting family from Raleigh, North Carolina. I hope you can make it out to Raleigh, North Carolina sometime to talk about stuff that had to happen to complete the 540 Beltway. I don't know that much about North Carolina, so it'd be fun to look that up. Let's see. I almost talked myself that when the bridge collapsed in Maryland, I almost ran out to that, but I thought better of it. Because right now, conventional media is doing a good job of covering the disaster. No point having me go out there to do a more amateur budget coverage of what they already are covering. But as time goes on and the project continues, I could see myself making it out there at some point. And while I'm out there, maybe see the Carolinas. Thank heavens for large parking structures. I wish I could get around my city using transit. More people buy my business is hurting my business. Sure, writes Marius at 007. Greetings from Germany, writes Yuri. Thank you for your interesting videos. Oh, you're welcome. Awesome. AA Sim writes, I think in terms of value per acre, a BRT line increases the types of development, increased VPA. Yeah, and I think as the night goes on, we'll walk down that way. That suburban mall, they figured that out. They go, we're required to put in this huge parking lot, and it's not making us any money. And I think they'd even done the math. The land now is so valuable underneath that parking lot that even building a giant parking garage, which is not cheap, to replace the parking, open up space for them to build office, mid-rise office buildings and stuff. And I think that's made them some pretty good money. Thoughts on the Trump trial? Not touching it. I'm not going to touch national politics. It's too explosive, and if I say the wrong thing, I'll make half the people mad, and if I say the wrong thing the other way, I'll make the other half the people mad. So I'm not going to touch it. Form your own opinion, be educated, and know that it's good for people to be nice. That's all. Affordable apartments, I thought, was replaced by condos. There was a time where there was a lot of condoization. I remember happening. It was in the 90s. I was a kid then, so I wasn't paying close attention. Today, for some reason, there's a lot of money that wants to steer into rentals. It makes good money, whether it's buying up existing homes and renting it out, or if it's making rental neighborhoods or condo apartment, medium density apartment buildings right out the gate as rentals. So I know at least here in Utah, it's all the high densities, rental. But, and I don't know why. I'm not an economist to know what something with the tax code, or there's a lot of retirement money that's sitting in investment funds, and the investment funds need to invest somewhere. I just don't know. But yeah, there's not as many opportunities as there had been. JP Solacey writes, great stuff, RGR, love from Minneapolis. Well, thank you. Nozja J writes, I apologize your name. Come to Adelaide and check out the Oban. Yeah, I mean, at some point, I've actually never left the United States. I've wanted to, it just hasn't happened yet. Tickle in my throat. The U.S. is so huge that I haven't even gotten to all the states yet. So I'm working my way out to try other places. Applewater writes, here in Ogden, they've been planning meetings, and so far it's been solid. And hopefully it sticks. Ogden's a city similar to Orem and Provo, but it's on the opposite side of Salt Lake. Salt Lake's long and skinny because it's all built along the mountains. And Ogden has also done a bus rapid transit line. It also has a university. And so maybe it's a sort of laboratories of city planning experiment where one city's going to go one way and one the other. And maybe if Ogden's successful, Orem will warm back up to it. But if you'd asked me, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, which city I thought was going to urbanize first, I would have said Orem. Right? Road Guy Rob, what do you think about roundabouts? Well, find out in my next 4 videos. They're coming out in the next few months that I've been working on. I went to Carmel, Indiana. So Carmel is famous for having a bajillion roundabouts. So. Okay, I get caught back up with the more recent comments. I'd rather take away lanes and add a train or at least bus rapid transit. Yeah, it just, you got to look at, though, this was a highway first. And like I say, if it was a binary thing that, you know, the Strong Towns advocates that it has to be a highway or has to be a street, this thing's going to go highway, despite the land use that's on it. It's coming in and saying, okay, with in that context, what can you do with it? They had, and as I say, they had an idea, they trashed the idea. You know, hopefully in the future they'll come up with a good idea again. Let's start walking. I'll try to read your chats as we go here. I'm gonna see if I can make this a monopod so I can hold it better. Okay, there we go. Have you considered collaborating with a channel called Cities by Diana? Now, I've never heard of that channel. She has made a lot of parody videos, including making fun of widening the freeway. Yeah, I mean, it is a bit, induced demand is a bit of an oversimplification. It does happen. But the thing the planners forget to talk about is what is the induced demand? You know, if the world were made up of people like me, who sometimes just get in their car and go for a drive for fun, then yeah, it'd be very bad. But most of that demand are people taking trips to work or grandma's house or running some kind of an errand that they were wanting to engage in anyway, and the land use requires them to use the freeway. And so widening the freeway, it's not like people just start driving for fun. They're finally like, oh good, I can finally engage in this, you know, thing in the economy that I've wanted to do and haven't been able to do. So I argue if you want to address the induced demand, you really have to first tackle the land use and say, look, how are we going to bring the economic activities that people need to do closer to where they live, or bring where they live closer to, howdy. What?
I wasn't expecting you to be in Utah.
Yeah? Oh, are you coming because of live stream?
Yep.
Hey, what's your name?
My actual name is Brian.
Brian, cool.
I've been in the chat as Utah Rail fan.
Utah Rail fan? Oh, cool. Let me flip this around. We'll talk for a second. Well, that's cool. See, you actually rode a bike on State Street today.
Well, just from the light, literally. I just got in on the bus.
Oh, you rode the bus down here?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just surprised that the city has a really nice bus rapid transit line on University Parkway, but they're scared to put one on State Street, even though they're very similar streets.
It's not that they're scared, they're actually going to be putting one in.
Well, the city pulled it off their plan.
I don't know why the city would do that.
Yeah.
It's on UTA's plan.
Yeah, and that's true. And to your point, and this is true of University Parkway, UDOT owns this road. The state owns the road.
I think they do for Parkway too.
Yeah, and so Orem had back with the first bus rapid transit, had a referendum vote about if they wanted to not have bus rapid transit, but it didn't matter because Utah, the lease to put the bus lane on the road was with the state of Utah, not with the city of Orem, so it didn't really matter. So that's true. It could be that to your point, I hadn't thought of that. If it's the Utah Transit Authority working with the state of Utah to put it along this road, what the city thinks is irrelevant. It's just that it's nice when the city wants to cooperate with you on it rather than fighting the city on it.
Honestly, what a lot of people like me find stupid is they were going to extend the track's blue line from Draper around Point in the Mountain. It would have been really easy to just extend it all the way down here for that proposed BRT.
Are they not going to run that one down State Street?
No.
It's going to go somewhere.
It's not even going to be light rail.
Oh, really?
It is going to be another bus rapid transit line.
Because the main Salt Lake City transit line, the very first light rail was the blue line. It went from downtown Salt Lake City to, what about Sandy originally?
Sandy about 98 south.
Yeah.
That was the Delta Center too.
Yeah, if you're following along on Google Maps, I think the street is, 9800 or something. There's a convention center there, a Southtown Convention Center. And then they extended it to the suburb of Draper, very highfalutin suburb. And then there's the rail line keeps going. And UTA owns the rail line well into the county. It goes through the tech area called Silicon Slopes. It goes through along State Street on the side for a lot of it. It really would be the perfect corridor for a light rail.
The unusual thing, UTA doesn't own the entire line to the best of my knowledge.
Oh, they just own parts of it?
Well, into Lehigh, yes, I believe they do own it. They have a trail alongside it.
Yeah.
But once you get, I think, into the south end of Lehigh, Union Pacific still runs a train a couple times a week.
Oh.
So it is an active rail line still.
Okay. Yeah, so that would be them having to build something to the side of it then, or in the middle of the street.
They can work out an agreement like they did with the track signs.
Yeah, right now they've had such good success with the bus rapid transit line through Orem that I think they're pretty gung-ho about it because it's a lot cheaper. But boy, you just can't beat a nice like light rail, you know what I mean?
It's not just this, it's OGX too now.
Yeah, the one we were just talking about that, the one up in Ogden that has its own bus rapid transit line to Weber State University.
I'm skeptical about that one actually.
You don't think it'll work as well?
I mean, I've been on it, don't get me wrong, it's nice. But the way they have it set up on Harrison Boulevard is really strange. So it's a regular 40-foot city bus.
It's a 40-foot city bus.
Yeah, electric obviously.
Uh-huh.
The thing with UVX, you got doors on both sides. You don't have to cross
Right.
the center platform. OGX doesn't have doors on both sides.
So all the platforms have to be on the right-hand side?
Yep. Well, here's that thing on Harrison Boulevard specifically. They have two that are middle of the road.
Uh-huh. So does the bus have to cross to the other side?
Yep. And when it comes to the signals,
Yeah.
that makes it strange because now they have to have a whole part of the cycle just to allow the bus to safely cross back.
Oh,
over the intersection.
man. So if I'm sitting at the red, yellow, green stoplight and it's time for me to go, but I don't get to go because I have to wait for a phase of the stoplight, whereas the bus crossing to the left-hand side because the bus doesn't have doors on the left-hand side.
Yep.
Oh, yeah,
that
does seem like a problem.
I believe that's 32nd and 36th Street stops.
Okay.
Do that.
So if you're following along on Google Maps, up in Ogden, 32nd and 36th Street and Harrison Boulevard in Ogden, Utah.
So yeah, the bus literally has to cross over to the opposite side. On one side, it doesn't matter because there's no intersection.
Right.
It has to wait to cross over the intersection so it's not flipping cars.
Right. Well, if you're welcome to join us, we're going to keep walking up and look at Center Street, what they're doing at the City Hall. Just funny, they're doing kind of an urban development up here with the new City Hall, even though the City Hall opposes urban development. I think it was kind of baked in.
Oh, it's never seen.
Let's see, so somebody on the chat here, from Flow Deckage, says, hey Rob, do you have any plans to make any videos on city grids and what is the best? Square grid, hexagonal grid, natural roads, etc. I think that'd be very interesting. So I don't have any plans to make a video on that per se in the near future. But one of the challenges, I mean, obviously a grid works great. That's why so many cities use it, right? Because you can... Right, and it also lets you pick multiple paths. It's a web, right? So if you have a breakdown on one street, I don't know, there's allergies or something, you have alternate routes. But the problem is, if everybody's walking around or whatever, it works fine. But as soon as the car got invented, everybody's trying to drive down all the streets. One street starts to get too crowded, then they drive on the other street, and then pretty soon all the streets are busy, kind of like Manhattan, right? Somebody writes here, quoting CGP Gray, awesome ace, and writes, hexagons are the bestagons. Well, okay, so the hexagons, if they line up, I'm saying, what do you do with the long trips? With a grid, you can sacrifice one of the roads and say, this road is going to be the power road that's north and south, and then this particular street on the grid is to be east and west. But if there are hexagons, what am I supposed to do? Zigzag my way across the state?
Are there any cities that use that?
I don't know. I think question's probably maybe a reference to a video somebody else has done. Yeah, exactly. You mentioned city skyline, somebody playing. And there are things that look pretty, but I don't know if they would work that well. I'm skeptical. I'd have to have somebody try to make the case for a hexagon or, a bunch of interlocking circles or whatever. Even Washington, D.C., which is sort of like a grid mixed with a bunch of diagonals, D.C. is kind of a mess. On foot, it's fine. It's kind of neat that there's always like a diagonal street you can walk down, but the, like driving it in a car, they all end at these circles, and I don't know, I think about, like I was driving in Denver, and the freeways in Denver are kind of like a clock. It's like a big circle, and then the freeways all branch through the circle. And if you're going in the direction of the circle, it's great. But if I was just trying to go north or south, well, the freeway's trying to turn, so it's not helping me. So then I'm back on a city street because I want to go north and south. I don't want to turn. And so there's part of me that I like to default back to all the roads kind of following cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, even though you could get a neat advantage with something diagonal. But like, look at this street. This street's slightly diagonal, and now everybody wants to drive on it. So.
Well, this one's diagonal just because of the way the terrain is.
Right. It was following the valley.
Yeah.
But all the other streets are cardinal directions. So that's why you don't have another major street through Orem. Everything is either the freeway or this. Even the other road over the one that goes up the canyon, well, people don't use it as much because it goes up the canyon. You have to do two sides of a triangle.
The major destination on that one is the Riverwoods.
Right. There's a shopping center, if you're following on the map, called the Riverwoods. And you'll see that's US Highway 189. But you can see why a lot of people aren't. It's a busy street, but not as busy as this, because it's going directly north, not northwest, in line with the valley. Now, see, this is an improvement. So this is a newer shopping center. They do still have the parking in front, but they did put in the buffer. I mean, even that helps. It's still not a lovely place to walk, but it feels a lot safer than being right up against the back of the curb. Have you ridden your bicycle on the street at all?
Bike? No. I just got this a couple days ago. I have done a scooter though.
You done a scooter down State Street?
Yeah, from actually right here, Little Caesars. That's going to be right up here, down into Provo, when I was working there.
Here's another example of poor access management, by the way. So this old business has probably been there for decades. Has a driveway opening here, and a second one right up here. Now, thankfully, there is a little bit of a median there, so it's harder for somebody to be making a left turn in, which makes it less stressful. But, it's another place I have to cross to be able to go in and out. And then it shares a parking lot more or less with this Taekwondo studio, which has a driveway of its own. And so those three driveways, they could melt down into one and people would be happy. And if they wanted a second one, well, see how they don't have an entrance over here to the shopping center? Well, if they could tie into the shopping center, they could use the shopping center's entrance as well.
The shopping center has a couple of its own.
Right. Whether it needs two or not, I don't know.
By the way, I've been told to extend greetings to Railfan Julian.
Oh, so you're saying greetings to Railfan Julian, watching right now?
Yep.
Okay. We'll check the chat here in a minute. It's hard to walk and read at the same time. I've done it a few times. And it looks like there was a super chat I missed too, so I'll have to go through and make sure I didn't miss that. So this up here at Center Street would have been one of the nodes. And in the old plan, that meant going as high as 150 feet. And it wouldn't just go from neighborhood to 150 feet, it would kind of grow. So along State Street, it would be like you could do 3 stories, then 5 stories, and 7 stories. And eventually get to the corner here, you do like 12, 13, 14 stories, right? And so it was trying to make this more of a downtown of sorts, of just leaning into the fact that there's a lot of people here. Why not go ahead and make it something something special. And well, you know, how compatible that is with all these cars trying to make longer distance trips, I don't know. And you know, that's something they have to look at, because again, this road's primary purpose before any of this was here was medium and long distance trips. But I think it can do it. You know, I think there's definitely a way to make it work. So on this corner here, you're seeing the construction. That's the new Orem City Hall, and it follows kind of an urban design principle. Instead of having the parking lot in the front like the old one, it has the building right up front. And all I can figure is that it probably took so many years to get this project off the ground that maybe it was just sort of baked in before they changed their mind and new elected officials undid a lot of the plans. But I don't know. Like I say, it's just kind of funny to see them on paper. Now, I do think that the building does look like it's 15 feet back from the sidewalk. You know, so it doesn't look like it's right on the sidewalk. So they are following that. But okay, let's take a look at that chat here. It says, "Dang, the city hall's in a prime location." Yeah, well, I think that's sort of the idea, is set by example, right? Like if you can do something first yourself, then other, you know, it's one thing to say, do as I say, not what I do, you know what I mean? And so by, you know, trying to actually get in and have something that kind of follows the goal, and so you have an example that other developers could do. Because you think about, like, behind us here, this conventional shopping center, it makes money, but like, imagine like how much of this is not being used because it's Burger King. And
quite a bit.
Yeah.
When I was working here, this corner one right here, that one used to be a clothing store.
So there used to be a clothing store in that mini mall over there, you're saying?
Yeah, the Little Caesars that's on the
so
end of
it's
that.
Vacant.
Yeah, it
And
looks
then,
like they have something going in. But
right.
like the thing is, like when I was working at the Little Caesars here on the end, we'd have a line down around the corner and nobody can go in there.
Right.
To do any shopping. A lot of the ones down over near the side of the Burger King too are vacant as well.
Right. And I think the thought is, well, you have these retail pads, like Burger King's a pad site. Down there, I'm not sure what restaurant that is, but it's a pad site. So we already do allow shopping centers that really have too much parking to say, okay, what if we allowed development on it because there's plenty of parking. But what if we went a step further and said, instead of doing a single story, you know, drive-through pad, what if we could come right up to the back of the sidewalk? Well, I guess put the trees and things in, and then have the sidewalk, and then right up to the back of the sidewalk, you had kind of an urban thing that was right up against the curb, went up about 4 or 5 stories, but you still had the parking in the center. So you don't have to tear down your shopping center, you just tear down the pad. And so that's a way of kind of phasing in to show, okay, if they're really terrified we're going to run out of parking, start by just taking it away a little bit at a time, one pad at a time. And then if you hit a point where the parking lot's full, then you stop. But at least you could do something that, you know, is better than, you know, although I think this is one of the busiest McDonald's around, but so it may not go away, but, you know.
A tiny part of the problem making that feasible is, of course, you need alternatives to driving to make it feasible.
Well, yes and no. You do want to have alternatives be possible, right?
Well, I'm
but
just saying that because all of this, even up this far, is all UBU.
That's true, and that's what I'm saying. You don't redevelop this entire block behind here to be zero parking. You do where you say, okay, we probably have too much parking. Let's redevelop on some of it. And eventually, when you hit that balance where the you know, kind of higher, medium, I don't even want to call it high density, because it's high density, you think of like a 50-story building, medium density, you know, 5-story, 4-story, 6-story. And once the parking's used up, you say, okay, this block, we'll stop it for now, and then eventually get enough transit and things in to serve it where maybe you can then get rid of more of the parking. And you kind of do it piecemeal a little bit at a time, kind of phase away from it, rather than like completely throwing everything away, you kind of say, okay, we're going to alter the area just a little bit at a time. Okay, let me get caught up on some chat here. Dairy Queen chili cheese dogs are delicious. I guess Dairy. Somebody told me a story about Dairy Queen where it was like, because they do the thing where you go through the drive-through and then to show how thick it is, they go like this, and it was like, but they were serving instead of a actual like thick shake, it was like a soda or something. But just they were just so tired and out of it that they went to deliver the soda to the customer and they go. I think that's
a YouTube clip.
Is that a YouTube clip? I know I've seen it somewhere. Where they were just. Where do they sell McFlurries? Stop lying. The machine never works. Oh, talk about McDonald's. Roadside Gourmet. Mark writes, oftentimes the code sets the calculation criteria for parking spaces. Yes. So when the motor car got invented, Model Ts everywhere, everybody's parking on the street. And it was really annoying to everybody because no matter where you went, there were cars parked on the street everywhere and there's nowhere to park and it was hurting business. And so to address a problem in the same way we're trying to address a problem today, when we have a different problem, back then they were saying, okay, we need to require businesses to have enough storage of vehicles that are coming to their business so they're not clogging up all the streets with people parked on the street, especially in new developments. So we did. The cities all over the place created minimum parking requirements. But the question is, like, how many spaces do you need? And so engineers, being smart, they put a thing together where they'd come and they'd look at a business and they'd say, okay, we went out and we looked at this Burger King at different times of day, and based on how many seats there are in there or how many square feet there are, we figured out that it requires 0 parking spaces because it's Burger King. No, but you kind of would come up with these estimates, and then but the engineers had also done something similarly for traffic. So cars going in and out of the Burger King, there's 0 cars an hour because it's Burger King. No, I'm going to make that joke land, darn it. So, but the counting cars going in and out of business, they get a lot of data points. Parking, for some reason, some of these business types have like 2 samples. And so a sample size of 2, it's really hard to know is that accurate. And then cities were even more conservative in their code, where they're like, well, we want to really make sure that there's plenty, or this guy's walking by. Really want to make sure that people aren't parking on the street. And so we're going to make it even more spaces than what the engineers think. And that's why you go to every shopping center in America and there's like about 2 or 3 times as much parking as they need. And even on the busiest shopping day of the year, like the only place I've ever seen fill it is a Costco in California. California loves Costco. But other than that, I've never seen typically shopping centers ever run out of spaces. So, but that's an opportunity, right? The city's not making much money off of this. So why not just play with it and say, okay, if you can prove that, if you can prove that that you're not going to run out of parking, let people develop on it a little more till you do run out of parking, and then you know how much parking you need. Make it site specific rather than just relying on a specific code that I think is a little too generous in how many off-street parking spots.
Site specific has its challenges. Down here in Provo, I was working at a place called New York Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. Only one in Utah. Right behind, so we're in like a little shopping center of our own. Right behind us, Raising Cane's came in. Oh yes. There's like almost no parking for that Raising Cane's.
Right.
But when they first opened, well, first of all, it's already an issue. But when they first opened, just like the current In-N-Outs that are opening up, out to the street, a couple blocks up. Right.
Right, and so and that's where, but that gets back site specific, right? Where if you're holding Burger King to the same code as Raising Cane's, or Chick-fil-A is the other one, you may not have adequate parking, or drive-through storage is the other one. Having enough vehicle to store the cars waiting in line, and it poses a safety problem if those vehicles dump onto the street. And similarly, cities are terrified of people parking on the street, apparently, and so we have minimum parking requirements.
I don't know if you noticed out here on the Parkway, there is an In-N-Out.
Yes, I have gone there many times, including the day it opened. I think I was customer number 25.
Yeah, well, there's still days, like the weekend especially, where it is coming out onto State Street a little bit.
The line?
Because that's where they route it.
Now, what's neat about the pad sites, In-N-Out sits on a pad of a bigger shopping center is you never run out of parking for that in and out, because they can spill into the oversized parking lot for the other bigger box stores.
But most of it's not going in. Most of it's
Most of it's going through the drive-through, and then it spills out in the street. Okay. Awesome ASM writes, what is needed are maximum parking requirements so developers can decide how much parking they want to limit. Well, yeah, but I mean, I've got mixed feelings on maximum requirements, because some developers are going to say, cool, I'm not going to put any parking in at all. So it's like at maximum and a minimum, because to the point of a maximum is you do get some companies are really good at building their buildings, like Walmart. Walmart they've built so many stores, they know exactly what they want to do to the inch, but they always overpark it because they want to make sure they know the minute somebody goes to Walmart and can't find some parking space, they may never come back to that Walmart again. It's like that's what they're trying to sell: cheap and convenient and fast. You know.
The smallest Walmart parking lot I've ever seen is actually in Provo.
The grocery store.
Yeah, the neighborhood.
That's because it used to be an Albertsons.
I haven't been here long enough to remember.
Yeah, so he's talking about there's actually it's still a little big, but kind of an almost right-sized parking lot for a Walmart neighborhood grocery, and
but it's also part of a major shopping center.
It's part of a bigger shopping center, yeah, with the strip mall and pad sites and stuff. But that's because when they built it back, I think it's probably back in the 80s or 90s, it was an Albertson shopping center, and I was here long enough. I watched it go through like 2 other stores before it.
I think part of the reason it actually gets away with it is because it's right by a UVX stop.
Okay, so you're making the argument that because it's by the bus rapid transit stop for UVX, that it can get away with a smaller parking lot. It's possible.
But because it's not like a super center.
I'm arguing, yes, true, it's not a super center, it's just a grocery. I'm arguing that I think actually it's probably less mode split, although you probably get the mode splits where, you know, the mode of transportation you choose to take, like bus, bike, or whatever, and then splitting it like of a shopping center, how much of it is car, how much of it is walk, how much is bike. The engineers, planners call that a mode split. And so you're arguing in the mode split, a higher percentage are walk and bike, because it's near a university, it's near transit.
It's also it's also very close to the Provo River Trail.
Right, and so you have people riding their bikes on the trail along the river. But, and so anyway, Walmart come in when they build their big centers, and even if a city is very generous with them and says, oh, you can reduce your minimum parking requirements can be very generous, you don't have to have very many. Walmart will say, thank you, that's okay, we're going to cookie cutter what we know how to do. And so a maximum parking requirement basically also tells the developer, well, there's only so many spaces we'll allow you to put in. And those haven't caught on as much in most places, because we're still living on, like, I know this is unpopular opinion, but like this whole suburban model, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if there were a few conditions, right? Like, if there was unlimited land, which at one point in the 50s and 60s it seemed like there was. There's unlimited fuel. Well, 60s and up until the fuel crisis in the 70s, it seemed like we had unlimited fuel. But those aren't true. And so then it get into, well, do you have unlimited time to commute from a place farther and farther away from the economic activity you want to be engaged in? Well, no, there isn't unlimited time. And then the last thing that I've thought about is, you know, heaven help me, what if I got sick? What if I got Parkinson's? What if I got MS? What if I, you know, lost an arm or a leg or something, and suddenly driving was very difficult? It's making an assumption that everybody can be a licensed driver, which not everybody is. And everybody under the age of 16 isn't. And pretty much everybody over the age of like 85 or 90 shouldn't be. And so all of a sudden you start adding up. There's a lot of people who, and so like I say, if everybody had a license, if there's unlimited time, unlimited fuel, and unlimited land, I just defend what we got. I like to drive. I like things being spread out. I don't mind getting on a long commute and driving past everybody, but I don't have unlimited time. I live in California. Fuel can be $5.75 a gallon.
Still that high?
Well, it depends where you go. There's something weird going on with California where most of the cost is not as political like they think. Because the gas tax in California is only maybe 20 or 30 cents more than the cheapest state. So it's okay, so you have 20 or 30 cents there, but you know, labor's expensive in California. It makes sense that it'd be higher.
Last time I was in LA, it was like $9.75.
Okay, you're talking about the famous $9 gas station. So, okay, here's the story time. There is this doofus gas station near Union Station in Los Angeles. If you're following along on Google Maps, look up Union Station, LA, and to the northwest of it is the Chevron station at like Alameda and something. And they're always stupid, like $7.75 a gallon or something dumb, because national news crews come out. They go to downtown LA to film the story, and they go, "Oh my gosh!" And then their gas station is always on the news as being this one that's stupid expensive. But if you go anywhere else, it's going to be $5 something a gallon, not $7, $8, $9 a gallon. So I don't know how they make their money, if they just sell snacks, or if there's just a lot of rich people who don't want to be bothered to drive a block and they just fill up their car there anyway. But that's not a good benchmark of the market as a whole.
It might be because there's a rental car agency right there in Union Station.
Oh, could be. I mean, it's by Union Station, so maybe something weird about that. But so gas in California there's refinery issues because they have to use a special kind of gas because you have 30 million people living in tight valley spaces. You have to have a certain kind of fuel that helps cut down on smog and air quality problems. Well, there's only so much of it, and they're not going to build new refineries in California. So, I mean, well, who wants to live next to a refinery, right? It goes back to what we were talking about earlier with housing. We're all on board with there being more housing until they want to come in. And I'm a hypocrite too. Where I grew up, they wanted to do apartments. Guess who went out to the public meeting on behalf of their parents and talked the zoning down, right? So I'm just as guilty as everybody else. This is the problem. And so it's like, I'm all for more refinery capacity, sure. Do you want it to be right next door to where I live? No, air. I don't want the smog coming out of the refinery right next to my house. I want to, what do they call that in economics? The externality. I want to push that externality onto you. It should be by your house so I can have clean air. And the high density housing should be by your house so I don't have people looking in my backyard, right? And then because we're all selfish, the whole thing breaks. Looks like I missed the super chat. We got this. Chevron admits to gouging. I don't know what goes on. I was just going to say, so Costco, Arco, and a couple are always 30 cents cheaper than everybody else. So there is some kind of gouging thing going on. If you go to Shell, all the name brand ones, Chevron, they're all going to be always 30, 40 cents more.
Just yesterday, the Sam's Club down in Provo was $3.58.
$3.58 at Sam's Club.
And everywhere else is like $3.88 something.
Be like those people on YouTube who fill up my car with a bunch of plastic cans and take it back with me. Okay, I missed several super chats, and I am going to find them. We're going back. I no super chat left behind. I'm easily distractible too, though. So, okay, so we have a really nice one here from Matthew Brannigan. Thank you very much to Matthew Brannigan. That name again is Matthew Brannigan. In fact, I'm going to like it. But Matthew Brannigan writes, I'm about an hour behind, so I can't comment on what's being said now, but I'm enjoying the stream so far. Many thanks. Well, thank you when you get caught up in an hour from now. Very nice super chat from Matthew Brannigan. Okay, let's find next here. A nice super chat from Mark. Thank you, Mark. Mark writes, hazard pay for your proximity to Burger King. That's the wrong one. What's Burger King? Oh shoot, what's Burger King? The BK. It's in my way. It rules. I don't know. The Arby's one always makes me laugh because it's good mood food. They're like, Arby's, good mood food. So,
I've only heard we have meats.
oh, that's what it is. We have the meats. The old one was good mood food. That was like 15 years ago now. So I would always think, bad mood food. Because when's the last time you ate Arby's and you're like, I'm really glad I ate that. Well, it's yummy while I'm eating. Like, this is the secret hack. It's like, I don't get the French dip. Because you're going to go to Arby's, you want to like dunk it in the sauce, right? You just have some like dry, because the roast beef's dry, so you're going to dunk it. Buy the, they have some burger that's like half a pound of beef.
That's a new one.
Yeah. And then you say, oh, can I get a cup of au jus on the side? And they're like, yeah, it'll be 39 cents. And then it's like big old burger that you can dunk. There's somebody shouting.
That caught me off guard.
Now, thanks again, Mark, for your super chat. I appreciate it very, very much. Okay, let's go down here to... I'm impressed how many cyclists, they're actually off camera because I'm not trying to like put a camera in cycle, but at this intersection we've had, what, 2 or 3 cyclists come up and pressed across. It shows that
There's no bike lane anywhere.
Yeah, he didn't have his headphones in. I'd ask him if he didn't have his headphones in how he feels about riding on State Street. But
so here on State Street, as you know, there is no real bike lane. Can't remember if there's any that way.
well, there's kind of a shoulder for about, you know, a block.
The thing is, you can't see it from here, but technically going east here on Center, there is a bike lane.
Right.
Down towards University.
Right. But I rode there were times I lived in Oregon and had a bike exclusively for quite a while.
I don't have a car.
And also you're in that boat. When I lived in Oregon, there were times I didn't have a car. And bicycle lanes, I'm not really a fan of them because they're in this like uncanny valley where it's like, it's not good enough for me to feel safe, but yet it gives me the illusion of safety. Oh, I have my own lane, but I've got about that much space between the car passing me at 40 miles an hour and me. I mean, cars can drive over white lines. They do it all the time. And I borrowed somebody's, no, I was test driving a Prius because in case my car breaks. And it has the thing where if you go over the lines, it beeps. It was beeping a lot. It tells me maybe I'm not as good of a driver as I thought I was. Now, if that one of those lines had been a bike lane, smush. So that's what I'm saying. I kind of like, if you're going to go in and do a bike lane, like do something that's...
protected bike lane is what I prefer.
Yeah. I mean, even if it's like, you can't do them here because Utah has snow and they plow the roads and it would break them. But in California, they have those flexible delineators. There's like flappy post things. Even that, because if the guy's getting out of the lane, you can all of a sudden hear, he's hitting them all, you know, to get out of the way, you know.
I used my tax return to travel
Excuse
to
me.
New York City.
Oh, you went to New York?
And well, I stayed in this area around Penn Station. They have those same things, but in the middle of the night, yeah, I'm homeless and I travel weird, but when in the middle of the night, the trash trucks would come by, and those things don't even exist. They back right over.
Oh, so they put the delineator posts out in New York, and then the city trash guy comes and runs it over.
It's usually not a city trash guy over there.
Oh, it's a contractor?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going back in time here. We have a very generous super chat here. This is from Garrett from MKE, which you've super chatted before, and I've asked before what MKE is, because every time I read that, I think either MSP, Minneapolis, St. Paul, which is not what it is, or XKE, which is a Jaguar, which you wouldn't be from unless you live in a luxury car. So thanks again, Garrett, MKE. You write, hey Rob, where are we this today? Where are we at today? So I am on, for those tuning in, I am on Orem State Street, which is a suburb of Salt Lake City. And this is the infamous stroad, as a fan of strong towns would call it. As somebody with an engineering background, I would call it a regional arterial street with very bad access management, two-way left turn lanes, which shouldn't be, too many driveways, lack of bike lanes, yield on left turns in places where there probably shouldn't be them, and all of it locked in because there are constituents who don't want it to change. I'm pretty sure that if I went to the Utah Department of Transportation Region 3 headquarters and got them off the record, they would all agree that this street's got some problems, and they would be very happy to have the budget and the green light to fix it. But this stuff takes money, and if constituents don't want to fix it, then you're stuck. So The same way I think there's people in the Orem planning department who are planning staff who would have loved to change the land use around here, but they answer to the city council. So that's where we're at today, Orem. So you write, man, I miss the mountains. I spent 2 weeks in New Zealand last year visiting a friend, and all of the roads are really nice. I believe the US built them during World War II. Any plans for any videos in Wisconsin? Funny you bring up Wisconsin. So on my Midwest trip, funded by you, which I appreciate, each of you, many of you kick in with Patreon a little bit, and it added up. And I saved it and ate fewer tacos. My grumbly stomach finally said, good, we can go buy tacos in another state, which can't get very good tacos in the Midwest. So I filmed in Carmel, Indiana. Those videos are coming out in a series over the next several months because there was so much to cover about roundabouts in Carmel. The mayor spent about half the day with me, so we got to hang out with the mayor, even go for a ride in his electric BMW, which he made a big deal was not taxpayer funded. He bought it himself. He didn't want me, thinking that we lived high on the hog. But he is a champion of roundabouts in a big way. And the first video coming out in just a few weeks here is really fun because I couldn't get him to admit it on the record, but if you look at the newspaper archives, he tricked the city into their first 2 roundabouts. They had voted no. He wanted to do 2 roundabouts by the high school. They unanimously voted no because it was 1996 and roundabouts were scary. And there was another road project coming in, and they just ended up with circular landscaped intersections, as they were called. And it was all downhill from there. The city loved them, and they got more. I think they're up to 152 roundabouts. But all the different problems that the roundabouts solved. If you put in one roundabout, it's just pretty. But if you do all the traffic signals roundabouts, the entire way the traffic flows through the city changes. Instead of it being that push and push and push of a stoplight, where right now everybody's backed up here, stopped. And the road on that side's not moving that many cars because it's pretty dead because the cars can't go through. And so that road's really being underused right now. And this side's just a parking lot. But if you can, and so they call that platoon arrival, platoon, where the cars all kind of come as a group, they wait, and then they leave. Once they get the green, they leave as a group, and then they just keep going as a group and a group. You could time traffic signals so that group keeps getting greens. It's neat things you can do with platoons, but it does mean you end up with this really wide street that half the time has almost no traffic on it. But if every intersection is a roundabout, people arrive and depart at random times. And so you end up with this kind of neat phenomena where by people coming and going at random times, the street can move just as many cars and be narrower. And so he applied that to fixing a problem near a high school, fixing it on a major state highway. It made it where bicycling is possible all over town without having to change any land use or really widen any roads. There's a lot of neat things that by the time I got done, I said, either this is going to be a 45, 50-minute video that's going to take me 3 months to make, or why don't we just make 3 videos? So that'll be kind of fun. And how Carmel was kind of in this type of a development world. And his case, not coming at it from a altruistic urbanist, like, oh, we need to build up because it's the right thing to do for X, Y, and Z reasons. He just simply pointed out, how much money does that parking lot make us? Making us like nothing. It's no sales tax revenue. There's no, very little property tax revenue. And a lot of businesses that could be in that space are going to other cities that aren't our city and paying property tax there. Why don't we better use the space and make money? And he did it without getting rid of parking. He found a trick. So what's in store in the next 3-4 videos? But going back to what Garrett writes, he said, are any plans to make any videos in Wisconsin? So you have seen on YouTube, there's a YouTube channel called Milwaukee Roundabout.
Thank you.
Milwaukee Roundabout is a guy in Milwaukee. There's a big bridge. The city street comes over this big bridge, and then it comes down, and then it lands in a roundabout, and then divvies out to the different streets. And he used to live in view of it, and he had a doorbell camera, so he could constantly catch the cars running into that roundabout and just going all over the place and flipping over, and because they weren't using the roundabout right and they're going way too fast.
Well,
And
that sounds like similar issues somewhere else.
so where else do you see similar issues?
It's not a roundabout. It's an off-ramp.
Oh, Seattle. The Seattle off-ramp?
An underground.
Yes.
Sharp turn coming out.
So Interstate 5 has a sharp turn coming off in Seattle, and I guess somebody had a cloud camera pointed at it, and we had a nice compilation. Similar to that, this is a roundabout in Milwaukee. So I went there I knew if I talk to the city of Milwaukee, they're going to be embarrassed. They don't want to talk about that, I tried to talk to a consultant who does roundabouts, but he was busy that week, so I missed him. Maybe through Zoom I can meet up with him, but he was based out of Milwaukee, so that might be kind of fun. Maybe he wouldn't want to talk because he's got a relationship with all the cities in Milwaukee. I don't know. But he was really kind. He just was busy. But I thought, oh, the guy lives there. So I went and knocked the doors to see if they were home, and nobody answered. But I figured out from looking at his videos that really there was just the one house it could be. So I sent a postcard to that address and said, hey, by chance, are you the guy in Milwaukee Roundabout? I'd love to catch you and interview you, even if it's through Zoom. And homeowner, renter, whoever, was really nice, wrote me back, I think I had my email on there, wrote me back an email and said, no, sorry, I just moved in. And I noticed the Milwaukee Roundabout channel mentioned something about that they lost access to their camera, so it could be that they moved and so they don't have new stuff. But that would be a fun video about the do's and don'ts of roundabouts, using Milwaukee as an example. So to cheat, I filmed a whole bunch of stuff there. They call that B-roll, where it's just like shots of like cars driving by, shots of the bridge, things that can cover when I'm speaking, in a pre-recorded way. And I did a couple what they call stand-ups, where I stand in front of the camera and point things out. And if I, in the future, can find enough other roundabout stuffs to write around it, it'll seem intentionally like I went all the way to Milwaukee just for whatever that video is. But it was originally intended to be about that, and so the answer is, yeah, Milwaukee will show up at some point in a video, but I've got to figure out the rest of the video since I couldn't.
You're going to have to find another way out there. Amtrak's adding a second train.
Yeah, I'm not going to take Amtrak out there.
I'm saying that's a news story right there.
Well, the challenge with Amtrak is that I end up in I need to be mobile. I need to be able to go from one filming site to the next.
I'm not saying take it out there. I'm saying you have to go cover the new train.
Oh, cover the new train. Yeah, well, if it's something that the local news is already doing a good job covering, I leave it to the local news. It's if I can find a fun angle that nobody else is hitting. But so anyway, yeah, thanks again, Garrett from MKE, with your very, very generous super chat. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see what other ones I've missed. Because I go up and I go, oh, it's really cool. Now I got to find where it went. Okay.
Rush hour is just about done.
Yeah, it's starting to calm down a little bit. We ought to probably start walking down the other side here in a minute. But
Good going, 2 hours.
I'm going back in time to the previous super chat. Oh, Josh Job. Thank you very much, Josh Job. In fact, he has a number 1 with a balloon. Does that mean he's number 1 and gets a balloon? Virtual one. Josh writes, thanks for the videos. To stay safe on that stroad. Yeah, I will. I've got a nice 5-foot sidewalk. What could go wrong? Thank you very much again to Josh Job. So I think it's not letting me scroll any farther back in time. So now we'll scroll forward in time and see what's on the opposite side. And just for fun, if you want to stand maybe at a different angle so you can still be the shot, but let's give people a different view. Just so they don't have to keep staring at the same shopping center. So we got behind us here was the cars approaching on State Street from the other angle. Okay.
I really wish UTA would do what Denver did a couple of years.
Okay, Garrett from MKE. What did Denver do that UTA hasn't done? You mentioned
The limited buses.
So what's a limited bus?
So the way Denver does it is like Route 15, Colfax Avenue. You have a bus that stops almost every block. Then you have another secondary bus that'll come by and it stops like at only the major cities.
Oh, okay.
UTA's only ever had one bus that did that, and that was in Salt Lake.
Which bus was that in Salt Lake that did the way you described?
It was called the 2X from Salt Lake Central to the University of Utah. They discontinued with the program.
Oh, okay. Well, some of that is, he's mentioning a very special kind of bus, a limited bus that would go up to the University of Utah. But the University of Utah gets its own light rail line. So maybe that was the thinking, is that have everything feed to the light rail line.
Like I said, they discontinued it in 2020.
Oh, in 2020? Well, it lasted a lot longer than the light rail line.
It was a direct connection from Frontrunner to the university.
Okay, we got another super chat. Let's see what this one's from. Brian Shacklet with a very generous super chat. Thank you very much, Brian. Writes, love your videos. How do you feel about stop signs at roundabouts? I find them dangerous and would love to get your take. Oh boy, I have a take on that. If you're doing roundabouts right, there shouldn't be a stop sign. Something's very wrong. And even worse, if you're having to put a traffic signal in your roundabout, there's something very, very wrong. And I haven't been to the United Kingdom. I haven't been to England to drive in some of these roundabouts that have the stoplights, traffic signals in the roundabouts. I've been to DC. Those aren't really roundabouts. They're just circular intersections that have traffic signals in them. But the whole goal of a roundabout, if you're building it properly, is it's trying to be like a highway merge. So it's just at a slower speed. It's a freeway that's going 20 miles an hour or 10 miles an hour instead of 60. But think about how dangerous the freeway would be if at the top of the ramp you had a stop sign. We couldn't. If you want to know what that's like, you go to Southern California, to the first freeway of Southern California, built in the 30s, called the Arroyo Seco Parkway or Pasadena Freeway. It has stop signs on the ramps because the ramps are too short. So you get on this ramp that's like about this long, and you pull up to the stop sign, and then you turn your head all the way around to look, and then as soon as there's a gap in the traffic, you just tromp on it and jump into 65 mile an hour traffic. But it's so windy, and nobody really goes 65. They kind of do more 55 because it's like the time of day where you can't find a gap, they're not going 65, and the time of day where they're going 65, you'll have no problem finding a gap. You know what I mean? So it works, but it's not good.
I think doesn't Bakersfield have one of those?
So you mentioned, does Bakersfield have an old highway like that? Bakersfield.
I'm thinking, because I take the Amtrak Thruway bus in there and it comes off, and I swear the incoming on ramp is something similar.
I'm gonna get you in the shot here. So Bakersfield has a lot of antiquated old highway stuff that predates the freeways. So the main freeway through Bakersfield isn't even an interstate. It's California 99. So California 99 already is a little bit weird because the three-quarter turn ramps on the partial cloverleafs are a very short merging distance, and I drive a little Honda Fit, and so I'm just nailing on it, trying to get up to speed, and it's semi-trucks having to change lanes or slow down to let you in. It works. It's a little bit below interstate standards, but it's pretty good. Hey, there's a friend of mine coming across the street. Come join us. You're just getting off work?
I am indeed.
So this is my friend Connor, who you've seen pop in occasionally as he's been the crosswalk guy to walk across the street. If you go back to the video about, was it Hawk Beacons? It's the one where I mentioned the Salt Lake City has the flags.
Yes, the Hawk Beacons.
Yeah, and so you can wave the flag so cars can see you. He's the guy waving the flag. So he came out and got to be in one of my videos, and I think I bought you a burger or something. It was a very good deal for me. So we're talking about stop signs and roundabouts. You gonna come around this side? Okay. So you're not staring in the sun? In fact, we'll walk over a few feet. I'm gonna take this with me so I don't lose it. Get another view. In fact, why don't we all, let's see, is your car parked here?
Yes, up in the library.
Okay. If you want to go for a walk with us back toward my car to keep the video going, I'll give you a ride back to your car. So I'll talk about stop signs and roundabouts and keep up on the super chats as we walk. So let's go ahead and cross the other side, and then we'll walk down the street the other way. So like the Pasadena freeway, you definitely don't want to have a stop sign on your roundabout either. Even though the speed's a lot lower, you end up with it just doesn't work right. And so I'd be curious to see a place where they've done that. The entire goal of a roundabout is if nobody's present, there's no other vehicles or people present in the roundabout, you're able to enter at 10, 15 miles an hour and maintain some momentum, get that feeling. Otherwise, why don't you just put in a four-way stop? You know, it'd be cheaper if you're making everybody stop anyway. And then you definitely don't want to do, predating the roundabout, were what they call those traffic circles. One that'll pop up in one of the Carmel videos coming up is, oh shoot, what's the name of it? It's that circle in downtown Indianapolis. It was one of the first big traffic circles in America. Okay, we're gonna go south, because I'm parked down here. You have, let's tell you what, I'm gonna turn it this way so you guys can have a view of what it's like walking down the street. So in Indianapolis, they have, it's like, Independence Circle. Oh, I forget what it is. And if I was looking at the chat right now, you may already know. But the rules of the old rotaries and circles were that you could enter without stopping, but you had to stop to exit or continue. And as you can imagine, that's a broken system, right? If you can have an unlimited amount of, vehicles or horse and buggies or whatever, an unlimited number enter, but unlimited number exit, the whole thing breaks and jams. But if you have a modern roundabout, it's the other way around. Once you're in the circle, you have the right of way. You're on the freeway, you can just keep going, and people are supposed to merge into you. And so you don't need to put a stop sign in. The yield motion acts as the stop sign. If there's no gap for you to accept, there's no place for you to safely move into the circle, then you stop. But otherwise, why make somebody stop if they don't need to stop? So anyway, that's kind of my take on it, is I'm going, well, if you get a chance, email me at news@roadguyrob.com the example of the roundabout with a stop sign in it, because that sounds really bad. There must be some really weird circumstance. The only thing I could think of is if there's like a railroad track or something nearby, but even then that would be a stoplight. So, but yeah, anyway, again, Brian, thank you very, very much for your very generous super chat. Okay, CEC, South Florida, thank you very much for your super chat. You're right here. Here's some money for food. Don't buy Burger King, please. Well, thank you. I will spend that on food. Probably a taco. No, it won't be Burger King. I'm trying to remember the last time I ate at a Burger King. I think it was probably over a year ago. I was helping a friend get new tires. It's up in Chico, California, and there was a Burger King right next to the tire shop. And I remember going in and thinking, there's nothing here. I'm not a picky eater, and there's nothing here I want to eat. So I can't remember what I got. Fries, probably. So, but I promise I will not spend a penny of it on Burger King. So yeah, thanks again, CEC, South Florida, for your chat. I really appreciate that. Okay, let's keep going down. Morbital, right, paying a very nice super chat in Canadian money. Thank you. Writes, come to Canada. Oh, it just disappeared. Come to Canada and cover Vancouver's freeway protest history. I'm not familiar with the history of those. I'll have to research those, because I know very recently they built a very nice freeway. I don't know if it was for the Olympics, but it goes up into the mountains. And at least from Google Street View and Google Maps, it looks absolutely beautiful. But I also know that Vancouver tends to be very, I don't say hostile to motorists, because they're trying to do a good thing, but they seem to be sort of the poster child of we're going to lower the speed limit, but not necessarily change the road to make it safer. Then people keep speeding because people don't really drive the way the speed limit tells them to. They drive the way the road feels. And then they go, oh, everybody's now scofflaws. They're all a bunch of criminals, so we'll put up cameras and ticket everybody. And the problem is that doesn't really solve the problem, does it? It just writes a lot of tickets. If you're writing a lot of tickets, people aren't slowing down, you know. And so the correct answer is, if they want to have nice, calm streets, I think it was something like 50 kilometers an hour or something. It's very, very mellow speed limits. You have to build a 50 kilometer an hour street, and they seem to not be doing that. So, but thanks again very much for your super chat. I appreciate that, Morbital. Okay, what we got next? I think I've caught up with everybody's super chat. So if I've forgotten you, please speak now, because I don't want anyone to be left out. But Tom Trask writes, yeah, Rob, stroad is a succinct description of how that road works. Yeah, and eventually it probably will get adopted as some type of a official engineering term, but I always tease a little bit and make a big deal about that, because I feel like people are too quick to treat it like it's this actual engineering term like you find in a manual or in a government document, and it's really just a product of one author. Let me see the people crossing in the middle of the block? That's wild. So I give people a hard time. I say, well, stroads don't exist. But what a stroad describes definitely does exist. But the term stroad, that's not actually a term yet. But yeah, I mean, we're going by Midtown Village again. Don't you want to live there? And you can look out and have a beautiful view of Pep Boys and across the street AutoZone, and think, wow, it's neat to live in a place where there's like no cars. Definitely not an AutoZone and a Pep Boy. Let's see. U-Haul writes, in other words, a stoplighted highway. I'm not sure the context of that, but I don't like the sound of that. Bajito writes, hey Rob, go get a dirty soda. No! No, I definitely don't want to get a dirty soda. That's like the worst thing you could eat. So a little bit of background, this community, very high percentage of Mormons, Latter-day Saints, LDS, right? And in the religious life that they live, coffee is off limits. And there's a lot of, people who live on coffee. They wake up early in the morning, they feel they have to have it. And so if that, from a religious and social standpoint, is off limits, what do you eat instead to kind of perk you up in the morning? And I guess they've decided that they'll go to a place that kind of looks and acts like Starbucks, but tighten this up so it's not wiggling so much. Looks and acts a bit like Starbucks, but instead of selling caffeine in the form of coffee, they'll put caffeine shots into your soda and brown sugar and vanilla and all kinds of stuff, and then give it to you in like a 24-ounce cup or some big cup, and off you go. And so I'd have colleagues who would have their, big soda that they'd want to drink, and it was really something. I don't drink much soda myself. I'm trying to lose weight, not gain weight, so I found the easiest way to start is to not have soda much. But it's anyway, I thought, living here, I thought that maybe the dirty soda movement was sort of like a Gen Z thing, that the younger kids were into nationally. And then I moved out of state again, and I go, oh no, they're still not here. Now the cookies, what do they call those, crumble cookies, those have taken off out of Utah and seem to be all over the West. So you find crumble cookies
Seemed like there was a donut place that had taken off too, but I can't remember. Maybe it was just the crumble cookies. Where I think even I went to Connecticut, and something about the Northeast. There's like Popeye's chicken and Dunkin', and that's about it. No matter where you went. And so it was interesting to hear that there was a crumble cookie in Connecticut. So unless I'm getting the brand mixed up with something else. Well, I'm not seeing any chats beyond "it's an arterial nightmare," so hopefully, but the super chats went up, so I don't know if I missed one, because it went up in price, and I want to make sure you get credit for it, and we get to chit chat about your super chat. Howdy. Oh, don't mind me. See, it's got all the ingredients. They got the business right up against the back of the curve. You got all the ingredients of having a walkable little main street here, but that side's got some problems. Okay, I'll stop here at the street corner and let's see if I can find the missing super chat. Hopefully I'm not missing one. I like some of the questions you guys asked, like the last one about the stop signs on the roundabout, because I'd really like to see an example of that. That's okay. Stop for a second. Okay, so the last super chat was, "Oh, come to Canada and cover Vancouver's freeway protest history," which I need to look that up. It makes sense that everything along the West Coast had freeway protests. Portland certainly did. San Francisco. It makes sense that Vancouver would, Vancouver, British Columbia would too. But it's like all history just like stops at that parallel, or 49th parallel, or whatever it is, and then just don't learn it. I didn't know that Canada had a prime minister until I was in college. So it shows. Yeah, I think I've caught up on all of your super chats. I want to make sure I'm not missing any. So let's see. Strong Towns, is that a relative of Strong Bad? Writes Jovette. That's funny. You need to fix your street. Hey, Strong said. MKE could be Milwaukee going back in time. Yeah, I still think the chats are outdated. Let me do live chat. Oh man, I'm missing a lot. Okay, yeah, I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. There we go. I knew there was a super chat I missed. Okay, so what happens is YouTube puts it in like best of chat mode, and then I missed some of your comments. So I'm glad I'm getting caught back up. Doug Griggs, $10. Thank you very much to Doug Griggs. So Doug Griggs writes, "I dedicated a video for you to our tour of our new light rail in Hawaii." Oh, okay. I will come back. I'm not going to watch it right now, obviously, because I'm walking. But do we have the walk sign? Yeah, let's go ahead and walk. We can keep going straight. Yeah, so I was talking a while back. We did sort of a patron-only hangout on Discord where we talked about, we just looked around Google Maps, frankly, and that's why we need to do something like that again soon. Let's see if we can set something up. But I wasn't aware of that big transit project in Hawaii. So there's a big transit project in Hawaii, but the harbor's in the way. So they have to build the rail all the way around the harbor, which made it expensive. And then a lot of it's elevated. So it's definitely had big cost overruns and very expensive. But in the long haul of it, it could be a really nice project when it's done, and it'll get done. And but I wasn't even aware of the project, so I appreciate people who brought that attention to me, and Doug brought it up to me again just now. So I will, when I get done walking tonight and done with the live stream, we'll click on that and take a look and see.
Park had its own struggles.
What's that?
Hart has had its own struggles.
Which Hart?
Hart, that's the literal name of the Honolulu building.
Oh, is that so? Hart is the name of the transit project Honolulu.
H-A-R-T.
H-A-R-T. I thought for a sec I thought you meant the 80s rock group.
Stands for, if I remember correctly, Honolulu Area Railroad.
Okay, not till now. Always got by on my own. That is Honolulu Transit.
Not that hard.
Not that hard. Okay. People mix me up for Stevie Nicks all the time. Must be my quality singing voice. No, till now. That wasn't Fleetwood Mac. Oh no! Oh shoot! You're right. So Stevie Nicks was in Fleetwood Mac. Who's in Heart? We can't. Laura Branigan, maybe.
They're two sisters. I forget their names.
Shoot.
Hey, I'm the trivia guy, right?
You are the trivia guy. My buddy here is walking along with us. One pretty much by himself. He was on the team with pub.
Big out,
But you guys had fun. You guys won. Okay. Mr. Tim writes, you forgot my super chat. I'm sorry, Mr. Tim. Let's see if I can find it. Super chat. Okay. Oh, I can see just super chats. Well, that makes things a lot easier. Okay, thank you for letting me know. Mr. Tim, thank you very much. And because I forgot his chat, we're going to pretend that he donated $100. So it's the biggest one so far because I forgot. No, thank you very much. He writes, collab with Practical Engineering when? I want to see a video about what all those gizmos and gadgets and widgets are that read, analyze, and control traffic. Well, it's funny you bring that up. It won't be a video about whizmos and gizmos that do all the stuff you're saying. But what if I were to tell you that I'm collaborating with Practical Engineering, Grady Hillhouse, tomorrow morning at like 8. So I haven't put the promo post out yet, but so he really wants to do a video on the Minneapolis bridge collapse. And he got excited because he thought maybe I was going out there so we could do a collab and I could, be the correspondent for his video from Maryland. Not, did I say Minneapolis? I meant Baltimore, Maryland. What are they supposed to? Let's start with that. There's like 5 words I have to remember. That's a lot of words, So anyway, bridge fall down, go boom, but not long time ago, bridge boom, boom last month. So the one in March. So I was going to go out to Maryland. I didn't do it. And but then we got talking and we realized there used to be a baby key bridge in Long Beach. It's like little tiny bridge that like half the size of the one that fell down. But it's the same type of construction, roughly the same age. But the difference was Long Beach tore it down. They built a new bridge. And the last little bit of it got hauled away about, it was October, I think. So then we decided, okay, well, if we're going to do a collab, I could come in and talk about that because that gives us some clues on the sorts of things that Long Beach wanted to fix on that bridge are things that Baltimore may want to fix too, and it might give us an idea of what Baltimore might want to build. And it's interesting that there was a headline, you might have seen it in the news the last couple of days, that some Italian designers, sorry, the video's so wiggly, I'm trying to plug in my power bank here because the phone's dying. Some Italian designers just drew up a concept of what the new Baltimore bridge could look like, and it looks a heck of a lot like the new Long Beach bridge, only bigger.
Really?
So it's a cable-stayed design. It's a little bit different than a suspension bridge because suspension bridge, you have the big tower, and then you have a line that comes off the tower, and then there's little hangers that come down off of that. Cable-stayed is where they all grab to the same place, and they're just in tension. And So yeah, check out Practical Engineering tomorrow morning starting at 8 Central, I think is when he's going to post the video. And there will be significant vignettes collabing with him in that video talking about that.
Do you remember when we looked up that news article about how the day after the bridge collapsed in Baltimore, Caltrans was asking for all of this money, right, to buffet up all of their bridges and to make sure that they were all sound.
I don't remember that article.
Yeah.
So you're saying the state of California had been asking for more money to shore up some of their bridges, and then the disaster hit.
Yeah.
So it was maybe good timing for them to be asking for that.
Yeah.
Because who's going to vote no on that? Like, no, we'll let our bridge fall down. It's fine. So to answer your question, Mr. Tim, yes, collab with Practical Engineering coming like hours from now. But it won't be a video about the gizmos and gadgets and widgets that read and analyze and control traffic, but more of that will be coming. One that's a very popular video I'm still trying to put together, I don't know if we'll get to it this summer or not, is the stuff that detects the ambulance or fire truck coming down the street, holds the green light for the fire truck and makes all the other lights red. Opticom, I think it's a division of 3M, I think they make that. But I'm trying to find, I have a source who knows a fire department who I think would be willing to show it off, because it'd be much more fun to see it work in the field beyond just knowing the science behind it, which we cover too, but a lot of that's going to be just graphics and animations. But
Told UTA uses that in UVS.
okay, so you mentioned that the transit agency here, UTA, uses something similar for the bus.
But UVS specifically and drivers.
So it's a similar technology. How the traffic signal behaves is different. So when you have an ambulance or a fire truck approaching a light, the emergency is more important than disruption of traffic flow. So they call that signal preemption. No matter what the signal's doing, all the other lights go yellow, red, and it holds a green and green arrow only for the direction of that ambulance or fire truck. And it just overrides the lights entirely. It's pretty neat. But a bus runs every 5 minutes. If the bus preempted all the lights, then the lights wouldn't work right anymore. You know, all the timing that they put in to try to have that dance of trying to balance the one street off the other just right to keep the cars moving. What they do instead is they use something called transit signal priority, which the traffic signal has sort of a range of time that it can stay green for each street. And so if it's getting close to that limit on the cross street, it can time out a little bit early to give a green for the bus. And if along the street the bus is going, if the green is getting stale and about to go red, it might extend it just a little bit. And so that gives the bus better than average odds of getting a green, but it's not 100% of the time like a fire truck. How it indicates to the stoplight that it's approaching, it might be the same hardware, and that'd be fun to find out. But it definitely identifies, oh, this is a bus, not a fire truck, and so it behaves differently. I think if they could, they would let it preempt and just let the bus go through. But I mean, you see how busy some of these intersections were, especially earlier on in the stream. You don't want to have a bus coming by every 6 minutes and preempting everything and then braking it, you know. So it's just trying to, like I say, strike a nice balance between everything. That's an extra tool in the toolkit, because you do feel bad if you have a bus with 30 people on it and it just barely misses the light, and it's like, oh, could have just held it for like 2 more seconds. These 30 people could have kept going. So the next time they're going to be mad and drive their cars, and now you got to deal with 30 more cars tomorrow, you know. So, okay, up next, but thank you again, Mr. Tim, for your super chat. Doug Griggs, thank you very much. Doug writes, I dedicated a video to Light Rail in Hawaii. Oh yeah, I already read that one. So am I caught up? Oh, William Parks. Thank you, William. He writes, hey Rob, if you haven't heard, MDTA is estimating the rebuild of the Key Bridge at $1.9 billion. It'll take about 4 years. That kind of makes sense. I mean, they're going to be spending months trying to fish the thing out. And then they got to get in and look and see, well, what shape is the rest of the bridge in? Because, you know, you look at the Key Bridge, they have those approach roads going up to, see, how far down was my car? Well, I think I was off 4th. But we want to go down and look at the mall anyway, so let's do that. And then, so those approach roads were not part of the bridge. That's why they're still there. And as we'll talk about tomorrow on the Practical Engineering collab video, those sit just regular I-beams sitting on vertical columns. And they have a nice horizontal I-beams sitting on them. So when the bridge fell down, it didn't pull them apart because they're separate structures. So they're still there. But I mean, that might be part of the cost of, can they reuse those, or did they get messed up when the bridge collapsed? So coming up here on the left is a, well, let me finish talking about the bridge first, because I'll get distracted and won't get back to your super chat. So 1.9 billion, it's a big bridge. That the bridge across the Columbia River is looking at about 2 to 3 billion, the one between Portland and Vancouver, Washington. And so if they can get that thing rebuilt for 1.9 billion, that's probably about right nowadays to build a bridge like that. Plus, I imagine they're going to want to build a better bridge. They're not going to, you know, piece of metal, rebuild exactly, sorry about that bump, rebuild exactly what they had. So this site here is the site of a dairy. And there used to be a Meadow Gold dairy that was right here. I don't know if you remember that. Let's see if I can tip this down a little bit. So the Meadow Gold dairy was, they didn't have the cows here, but they bottled all the milk. This is not going to work. Unless I can zoom out. Got to raise the tripod or you can't see my head. This site right here was going to be high density housing. They tore down the bottling plant and this vacant lot right here on State Street. A lot of room here to build a lot of units. And then the city adopted all their new stuff and it created a huge mess and a big lawsuit. And last I heard, I don't know how, let's see if I have the lawsuit thing. So in 2021, the city did a moratorium on more high-density housing in the city, especially along State Street, because it's the only place you can build it. And it messed up the development that was here. They were all set, they had the approvals from the city, and the city yanked the rug out from under them. So it went from being, I had a note here somewhere where I wrote down, oh, the height restriction pulled it down. It was going to be 6 stories. Now they can do 3 to 4. And that cut hundreds of units off their project. Well, if you cut hundreds of units off your project, it might not, what do they say in business, make pencil anymore, where you're able to make money on the project. So now the city instead has a vacant lot, because there's nothing more family friendly than a vacant lot. You know, the sand lot, I guess kids can play stickball or whatever. But it's not good use of economic activity. Like, they want to be good steward of, what are their goals here? It's like encourage business and I forget what it is.
Kind of sounds like they wanted to do a Salt Lake.
Beautification? No. Attract new businesses? No. Help businesses thrive, expand, and stay in Orem? Well, I mean, they're not chasing any of them away, but they're certainly not giving them room to expand. Protect neighborhoods. Well, I guess they did that because you don't have the big scary apartment buildings next to single family houses, but it just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a good use of the space, don't you think? So I remember driving by here the other day and thinking, I don't remember there being a vacant lot there. And that's why, the dairy. And then what's interesting too is the dairy, they're so scared of high density. The dairy used, if you look on Google Street View, if you're, or Google Maps, if you're following along at home, State Street, Norham at 8th South. You'll see a shopping center there with a party supply store, a mini mall. And right behind it, especially if you have older footage or you use Google Street View, you know, if you're on desktop, you can go back in time with the Google Street View and see how things were, sometimes back all the way to 2007. You'll see a Meadow, I think it was Meadow Gold Dairy, and it was right up to the sidewalk pretty much. So because it was such an old building, it fit that older code of the 1940s and 50s before we had all these setback requirements and everything. And the dairy was compatible with the city being right up against the curbs for, 70 years, 80 years, no problem. It's gone. Now they want to do a new development. It'd be right up against the curb and 6 stories tall. And they're scared that that'll be incompatible, but I think once it's in, it's weird for a few years and then you get used to it and it's fine. Or, you could just keep the vacant lot and make no money. Your choice, I guess. Okay, so William Parks again on your super chat. Thank you for your message about the Key Bridge. So keep an eye on that. Mr. Tim, collab with Practical Engineering win. Okay, we got that one. Come to Canada. Here's some money for food. Love your videos for Brian. Mark, hazard pay for Burger King. Garrett from MKE. Got that. Thanks for the video. Stay safe on the Stroad from Josh. Pete Martin, $9.99. The road may be ugly, but that view is spectacular. I don't know. Did I get to your super chat, Pete? The road may be ugly, but that view is spectacular. Oh, that's right. We were talking about the mountains. Because I thought that for a second, I thought you were being cynical about the view of the road is spectacular. Okay, and then Sir Bikes a Lot. I've seen uglier suburbs of Louisiana, who was top of the show today with the very first super chat. So I think I've gotten to everybody so far up there. Let's go down and see now. We have a new one. Jaden's Place. Very generous super chat from Jaden's Place. Thank you very much. Right, I'm donating because I really love your videos. Well, thank you very much. I enjoy making them. I like how you're so knowledgeable about the topics you're presenting. Please keep it up. YouTube needs more people like you, Rob. Also, what did you do before YouTube? I'd be happy to tell you that, just like I got to blow my nose here. Sorry for the ugly sounds. Allergies, You want to see me? Oh, somebody waved. They're going by. So we'll keep walking here and we'll talk about what I did before YouTube. That's very kind of you. I'm purposely trying to do YouTube a little bit differently than what you would see other people do. Very early on, I started having barely reputable companies reach out and say, hey, how would you like to do a 60-second video forever in your video, a 60-second spot talking about some shady Panamanian-based VPN? And I go, no, not really. Because a lot of it is some of my videos, or at least parts of them, they show in, sometimes somebody will show it in a city council meeting or in a college class. And I don't, it's one thing if YouTube inserts an ad, that's not my fault, whatever they insert. But if I'm coming in and I'm having to endorse a product that's, all of a sudden has a scandal, I don't want to forever be associated with, super shady VPN. And they send me copy, and it was very sketchy. Oh, where'd my phone go? No! So,
it's getting cold.
The battery died?
The battery died. Are you guys still there? I plugged in my battery back up.